Lincolnshire and East Anglia through the course of today. Otherwise, though, many places having a dry day, sunshine for Scotland, western parts of England and for Wales and Northern Ireland. And I think it will feel quite warm once again, so 17 or 18 degrees Celsius, somewhat above average in terms of temperatures for the time of year in the west, but still a little bit cooler further east. Quite a bit of cloud then to end the day across the Midlands and eastern parts of England. And across the southeast as well. I wouldn't want to rule out just one or two light showers, particularly for the coasts of Kent and up through Suffolk and Norfolk. Some sunshine though for southwest England and Wales to end the day, and still dry with some bright or sunny spells across many parts of Scotland, northern England and Northern Ireland as well to end the day. Across the very far north of Scotland, though, just perhaps one or two showers getting quite close to Shetland, and here it will be quite a bit cooler with that westerly breeze. As we go into this evening, then it stays dry for the vast majority. Clouds tending to melt away, and I think it will be mostly clear night actually in many places. So those temperatures will start to fall away, and whilst it won't be as cold as it was last night, in the countryside we could just see temperatures dip down to low single figures. So just low enough to give a touch of frost in some prone rural spots. But on Wednesday, once again, any mist quickly clearing, and once again it will be a fine day with bright or sunny spells. Perhaps one or two light showers just clipping the far east coast of Norfolk and Suffolk and moving down towards Kent. But again, vast majority of places staying dry with some warm sunshine once again, and those temperatures rising into the high teens in places, so 16 to 19 degrees will feel very pleasant indeed. Bye for now.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's fast approaching midday on Tuesday, the 6th of May. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Well, military celebrations are taking place in London today to mark the anniversary of the coronation of their Majesties, the King and Queen.
Yes, so the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, they're about to fire a 41-gun royal salute in Hyde Park. And as we wait for the moment, which is just coming, we are joined by the author of Modern Monarchy, Dr. Craig Prescott. Just very quickly, what are we looking at this moment then?
Well, we're looking at sort of Hyde Park, and we're seeing the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery getting ready to start the 41-gun salute.
And the 41-gun salute is it has a naval origin, but of course it's a much more spectacular number of guns than a 21-gun salute.
Yes, it's an extra 20 are added because this is taking place in a royal park. So 21 is standard, and then extra 20 for a royal park, and at 1 o'clock another 20 because that's taking place in the Tower of London.
Okay, let's listen in.
Well, it is a spectacular sight and sound there in Hyde Park as those guns continue to fire to ring in this coronation anniversary. Dr. Craig Prescott, what is the origin of guns being fired in a ceremonial way like this?
So the origins stem from the 15th, 16th century when ships would visit foreign ports, and they would effectively empty their guns as they sailed into port as a show of friendship,
so
to show they come in peace.
Show that these guns couldn't be fired again.
Yes, absolutely. And English ships would traditionally have 7 guns, and the responding port would fire 3 in response. That's why you get to 21, because the responding port would fire 21 guns, and that became the standard for a gun salute, 21, which has been copied around the world ever since. In America, the presidential salute is 21 guns. So, you know, this is one of those practices that other countries have followed as time has gone on.
So will the same happen every anniversary of the coronation?
Yes, this is one of those occasions when we have a gun salute. There are several around throughout the year. We'll see this at Trooping the Colour.
Yes.
We'll see this at the Queen's the Queen's birthday, the King's birthday, which is in November. We'll see this on Accession Day as well in September. So there are occasions throughout the year when this is what happens effectively.
Now, of course, we're seeing this in Hyde Park at the moment in these wonderful traditional uniforms with these barrels of the guns on those wheels there. But we are also going to see a further salute later on in the day at the Tower of London.
Yes, absolutely. As is custom, that there's 2 of these take place, one in a royal park and the other in the Tower of London, which reflects the unique position of the City of London. And it's a show of respect from the City of London to the monarch. And there's an extra 20 guns when it's the Tower of London for the City of London. So that's why it's a 61 gun salute at the Tower of London at 1 o'clock and only 41 here from Hyde Park.
And of course this week we've all been, we're celebrating on this channel across the country, of course, the 80th anniversary of victory in Europe Day. I suppose some military celebrations in London, particularly of note, considering all of that context.
Yes, it's timed very, very nicely this year because it's formed part of that sort of military ceremonial which we're having this week. Follows on nicely from the VE Day parade and fly past down the Mall and over Buckingham Palace yesterday. So, you know, it forms part of this week of celebrations and reflects the close links between the monarchy and the armed forces.
It is one of those things that sort of you blink and it could be in a period drama. You know, this has sort of been the same for centuries. How important is that when we're thinking of the world and the turbulent nature of the world as we know it today? Having sort of mainstays and traditions and ceremonies like this that our parents' generation, our grandparents, our great-parents, our great-great-grandparents would all recognise as the same.
Yes, absolutely. This is part of that point of the monarchy being a point of stability, a point of common reference in an ever-changing world. And, you know, I think one thing that's been really interesting is how that has carried on in this new reign. For most of us, Elizabeth II was the only monarch we ever knew, and we didn't quite sort of perhaps know or sort of anticipate just what it would be like with another monarch. And the answer is pretty similar. You know, that a lot of these traditions just carry on regardless and sort of shows the monarchy as that point of stability, you know, particularly at times of political turmoil, at points of disjuncture and you saw that yesterday with the VE Day celebrations. It's sort of the King and Queen were recreating what the King's grandfather did in 1945 with the balcony appearance. And so that's, you know, that's what the monarchy is for, really, to be that point of stability.
And, of course, marking the anniversary of the coronation, a moment to reflect on how King Charles is doing.
Yes, well, I think this has been one of the... you know, again, it goes back to the point, how would a new monarch be different to Elizabeth II, which we've all grown up with? And in many ways, many things have stayed the same, but I think we've seen a more active monarch. I think, you know, I think the new dimension that's really come is in the international visits and the state visits, which, because of the Queen's age and because of COVID, had sort of disappeared for 8 years or so. And I think we've seen that the King is particularly good at state visits. The visits to Germany and France and Italy more recently have been a success. He's very good at delivering a speech. And I think that's something where he, you know, has perhaps distinguished himself from the Queen, where he's, you know, there's more memorable content in the speeches, they're perhaps a little bit wittier. He's spoken in German and French and Italian on the state visits, and I don't think it's any coincidence that Keir Starmer has sought to use the King as part of that package of trying to deal with President Trump. Yeah. Because he's taken advantage, I think, of something that the King has shown to him to be particularly good at, I think, in terms of state visits.
And that is a sort of unique element of diplomacy that this country can offer, that sort of sprinkling of royal magic over any sort of mundane political visit. And in that way, Keir Starmer in the Oval Office handing a letter from the King to Donald Trump, much more exciting than a letter from the Foreign Office or the ambassador.
Oh, absolutely. It was, you know, it was done with a theatrical flourish of the sort that I think, you know, President Trump quite likes. And, you know, Trump seems to have an affinity with the monarchy, which is, you know, which perhaps is useful to the UK, you know, given his links with the country.
Got a band playing.
We have the music has struck up and the Royal Horse Artillery seem to be galloping or at least cantering through the park.
Yes, they may well be leaving. Have we? I've lost track of the number of guns that have been fired. So
I think the guns are...
I think we have had our 21 guns. So now we have a procession at speed. And we can hear strings in the background there, really summing up the sense of occasion and the sense of majesty in a way. Because again, this is the sort of sight that you would have been able to watch in almost precisely the same way hundreds of years ago. It actually is quite striking. Looking at Hyde Park there, you can't see any sort of, you know, modern electrical lights. You can't see any cars in the background. I mean, this is really as it would have looked for century after century.
Yes, and you know, the Royal Horse Artillery was set up by George VI, you know, charged with to have a mounted battery to fire salutes on state occasions dressed in the traditional style. You know, this is very deliberately set up to, you know, bring back those memories and to follow that tradition of centuries, as you say.
No, it is so interesting to see the pomp, the pageantry, the splendour. Again, what this country does perhaps better than any other country, and linking it all in to the displays, the marching that we saw yesterday, and the celebrations still to come throughout this week, not just for the coronation, but of course for Victory in Europe Day as well, which is fast approaching. It really does turn into a week of celebration.
Yes, it does, and you know, this is something that you know, the UK does, but as you said, it's also the particularly extensive way in which the UK does this. That you know, we have these occasions, sort of, which, you know, if you grow up in this country, you might see on the news for 5 minutes and then not think much more about. But you know, it's part of that background of you know, what the UK is, what the state is, you know, and the fact that we are still a monarchy. It is one of those reminders that the monarchy is there in the background at the head of state and head of our public life.
And not just our public life, but also that of Canada, where the King will be travelling off to deliver, as they call it, the speech from the throne, what we might know as our King's speech, opening the Canadian Parliament since the first time since the 1970s.
Yes, this is, you know, the Prime Minister Mark Carney's invitation for the King of Canada to open the Parliament of Canada, and you know, it reflects that the King has 14 other realms as well as you know, the UK here, and the role of the King in constitutional terms is very similar in those 14 other realms. Most of the time it's a Governor General that would deliver the speech from the throne on the King's behalf, but it is always open for those realms to invite the King to do it in person, and it's an interesting move by Mark Carney, given President Trump's overtures to Canada, and that discussion of 51st state and what have you. It's to show that that Canada already has a higher authority.
Yes.
That there is, you know, Canadian sovereignty is with the King in Canada. And, you know, Canada is different to America and, you know, will not become the 51st state, no matter what Trump says. It's a very interesting move by the new Prime Minister there. OK,
well, Dr. Craig Prescott, thank you very much indeed for talking us through. We were just watching the 41-gun royal salute in Hyde Park to mark the anniversary of the King and Queen's coronation. So there you go.
Absolutely marvellous stuff, and of course we'll catch up with the Tower of London a little bit later in the programme.
Now, a little bit earlier, we did mention, of course, yesterday what we were up to.
Oh, yes.
So I thought we'd have a little look back, because Milton Mowbray was an absolute delight. You were at HMS Belfast, which presumably was too. There's me having a little dance. They quickly cut away from me, thank you for that. But yes, these guys, they're part of a dancing group. They came down, lots of other locals getting involved as well. People travelled down from nearby towns and cities and from quite far away as well to say hello to Patrick and me, which was rather nice. I got in this 1926, I believe it was. No, it's 1931, an Austin 7 car, non-ULEZ compliant, Tom. But very nice to see.
I would have thought, that it's ULEZ compliant, because classic cars are.
I knew you'd say that.
This is
technically classic cars. Classic cars you can drive, yes.
This was on board HMS Belfast, where there was a real sort of atmosphere of not just experts and people who were witness to the war, reenactors, but also the school children who were invited from nearby schools to sort of learn about the history of VE Day, to learn about how children were, you know, experiencing the Second World War as well. A real sense of living history aboard. Yeah, and I did speak to a chap called Steve, I think it was, who did tell me that you were his absolute favourite presenter. And that I should tell you. Yeah, he couldn't stop going on about you, absolutely loves you. And then a lovely woman called Beverly, I think it was, came up to me and she said, she was chatting away, and then she said, Emma, I've just got to tell you, sometimes you're a bit mean to Tom.
And, yeah, I blew my lid. No, I'm joking.
Well, thanks, Beverly Turner, for saying that.
It was not Beverly Turner. It was another lovely Beverly who was very kind and came to say hello to us, which was fantastic. So, yes, a wonderful day and more celebrations to come.
Fantastic stuff. Well, we're going to move on now because we've got a GB News exclusive for you. The full extent of Britain's grooming gang scandal has been uncovered.
Yes, and our reporter Charlie Peters here in the studio to tell us more.
Well, good afternoon, Tom and Emily. In January, Baroness Louise Casey said that they would be looking into a rapid audit of the grooming gang scandal. They said it would take 3 months when the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, announced Casey's review. Well, that report is late, but GB News has teamed up with some researchers, some grassroots researchers from the Crime Spotlight group, and we've created our own, the first of its kind. Thousands of hours have gone into this, and it's best displayed through a map, which demonstrates the full extent of that crisis, showing some 50 different towns and cities affected by this form of criminal abuse. We've found over 5 decades of this sort of scandal taking place, with prosecutions we've started tracking from 2007 right up to last year. It stretches from Plymouth, below where this map actually cuts off, all the way up to Carlisle. Now, of those 500 convictions we found, at least 145 are already out of prison, though in reality it should be even higher due to eligibility for parole and early release. And if I can bring you further forward into the north of England, we can show the sheer intensity of that concentration, particularly around the Bradford district, Huddersfield as well, also Kirklees, and of course, as you'd expect, in Rochdale and in Rotherham. Those are just the 2 areas on this entire map that have had serious local reviews in this area, and also Telford further south, where there've just been some 7 convictions despite over 1,000 victims being found. But this map isn't just about the survivors, their testimony and all those convictions. It's also about tracking that organised criminal gang networking element. So we can show in this next slide the number of convictions by local area. We've got 65 in Rotherham specifically. But if people go on the GB News website, they can see their local area, where it is represented on the map, and they can track other convictions in their towns. Let's take it forward now to that trafficking display. You can see here the links across the country where these gangs have operated. They're not isolated. They're not limited to specific on-street grooming offences. Many of these gangs operate in agreement with and with association with other gangs right across the country. Now, obviously, we've been looking at the north of England there, but look down south here in London. The number of links there, a severely underestimated and unknown part of our scandal, is how often survivors were trafficked there. You're seeing those links with Oxford as well, one of the most notorious gangs in this national history, operated out of that city as well. But let's go forward and go back to the north of England again, because, wow, I mean, look at the intensity of those networks, of the trafficking that's taken place here, particularly around Bradford, particularly around Rotherham. But only one of those towns has had a local review. That's Rotherham. Some 1,510 survivors found there. In Bradford, however, there have been lots of convictions, but we don't know the extent of the scandal. There's never been a local independent review there, despite much campaigning from victims and also from local politicians as well. So what we've done here, Emily and Tom, we've demonstrated through research the extent of this national scandal. It's shown why there is so much interest as this scandal rumbles on in that national inquiry. The government continued to insist that they will have 5 local inquiries, though they won't say where. They also said they're going to take on the ICSA recommendations, though they've dropped 2 since January, and they continue to say that a national inquiry is not needed, it would drag on, and that action is what they'll deliver instead. What we're showing here is there's lots more to investigate.
It's so powerful to see the map like that and see all of those lines joining up across the country. So many of our towns and cities affected, and as you point out, so few convictions relative to the number of incidents, and just 0 deportations since 2011. Shocking. Yeah. But yet politicians are pushing back against this idea of a national inquiry. Yeah. Sadiq Khan didn't want one in London, or appeared to, not want to answer the question on that front. Other leaders as well, of course.
No, it does just show that there must be more investigation here. But also the millions of pounds that have been spent from taxpayers' money through legal aid for these people avoiding being deported. I mean, we paid for that.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, actually. Right, we're going to move on because we've got lots to talk about today. Yes, the government is reportedly considering changing its cuts to the winter fuel payment because voters punished Labour at the ballot box last week.
Well, while ministers are unlikely to fully reverse those cuts that they've imposed, they're set on planning to increase the £11,500 threshold over which pensioners are no longer eligible for the allowance.
Well, here's what Health Secretary Wes Streeting had to say a little bit earlier.
What I do want to reassure your viewers are, though, that look, we did notice the results last Thursday. I think voters have sent us a very loud and clear message that unless we deliver the change they voted for last year, they will look for change elsewhere. And all I want to just reassure people about is that, particularly if you take the top three issues voters consistently tell us at the top of their agenda, the cost of living, the NHS, border security, we are taking action on every single one of those fronts.
Well, let's get the thoughts now of the former chief economist at the Cabinet Office, Jonathan Portes. Jonathan, thanks for joining us. I mean, there is a problem that the government may have run into here, which is that there was meant to be £1.4 billion saved over means testing the winter fuel allowance. But then the government launched this massive campaign for people to take up pension credit. And if everyone eligible for pension credit takes it up, will they wipe out their savings?
Yes, although to be fair, in some way that's a policy success, right? Because what you would be doing then is taking winter fuel payment away from those people above the pension threshold, that is, pensioners who aren't particularly poor, relatively middle class, and in some cases very wealthy pensioners, and giving more money to pensioners who are genuinely poor. Remember, you could only get pension credit if your income is below about £12,000 a year. So that would be overall redistributing money from middle and well-off pensioners to poor pensioners. That in itself is a good thing. But you're right, it wouldn't achieve much in the way of savings. And the problem, of course, with making a U-turn on this is that the government, not unreasonably, said that savings were required in order to pay for some of the other things it's doing, like increasing spending on the NHS. So a complete U-turn on this, if it weren't accompanied by other measures, would risk the fiscal credibility that the government has set so much store on.
Yeah, and they clearly believed in this policy, at least to begin with. And could you argue, Jonathan, that the damage is already being done? That even if they did decide to completely backtrack on this deeply unpopular policy, that it wouldn't necessarily make a difference in the polls?
Well, I'm an economist, not a politician, but as a civil servant, my experience was that government politicians are very reluctant to U-turn, but actually, if they do U-turn and they do it properly and sensibly, then on the whole, people sort of shrug their shoulders and say, OK, they made a mistake, they admitted it, they changed it. What's wrong with that? I think people actually are quite reasonable about governments if they're honest about, if they simply go out and say, yes, we got it wrong, we're going to change the policy. Actually, on the whole, I think that tends to go down quite well. I think it's certainly better than sort of digging in and pretending that you thought it was a good idea all along, even if you have actually changed your mind.
And yet, any kind of U-turn on this would, of course, cost money that the government doesn't have. They've had to have a fiscal statement recently trying to find more cuts elsewhere. They're borrowing to the very brim, to the limit of what they can within their own rules. I mean, they'd have to raise taxes, wouldn't they?
I think, in the great scheme of things, £1 or £2 billion isn't very much, right? It's the margin of error of the OBR forecast. So that in itself is not the problem. I think the problem is more what sort of signal do you say to the markets if you can't even if you make a cut, you make a big thing about it, and then you U-turn when you lose some local elections.
So there could be a truss effect.
Yeah, what does that say about your credibility? So I don't think they'll necessarily raise taxes to fill the hole, but they may well need to raise taxes to signal back to the markets again, actually, we are still serious about our targets of balancing the budget over the next 3 years. So I think that's a very important point.
Well, Jonathan Portes, thanks so much for joining us and talking through that particular conundrum that the Chancellor is facing.
Yeah, and yet we're seeing some of these tax hikes aren't exactly having the intended consequences of raising more money for the Treasury. So there's that, isn't there? Oh, we'll just fill this hole with some tax rises. Oh, wait, we're losing money at the same rate. Anyway, this is good. Let us know, do you think if they did U-turn, the Labour government decided to U-turn and said, nope, you can all have your winter fuel payment back, would that make any difference to how they're perceived by the public? Let us know. But lots more coming up.
Yes, is Kemi Badenoch's time at the top running out? Rumblings inside the Tory ranks could spell trouble. But after the break...
With Tehran accused of plotting attacks on UK soil, we'll be joined by a man who claims to be the top target for the Iranian regime. You won't want to miss it.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A very good morning to you. And if you're planning to visit one of Britain's many beauty spots next bank holiday or Easter weekend, beware of your car.
Yeah, a rising number of tourist attractions are banning coaches and some cars to help ease overcrowding.
We're here to debate if vehicles should be stopped from parking near attractions. Government Relations Manager at the Countryside Alliance, David Bean, and founder of Fair Fuel UK campaign, Howard Cox. Good morning to you both.
David, how much of a problem are tourists when there are too many of them and they bring their great camper vans and they park all their cars in a line so you actually can't see the beauty spot you went to see? How much of a problem is it?
It can be a significant problem in certain areas. I'm in Scotland for the holidays, and particularly in areas such as the Highlands and Islands, there are areas that have very, very badly been affected. Even some camper vans end up getting taken out to certain places on the islands and then just abandoned after a holiday is finished.
Honestly, this is horses for courses, and to be fair, you know, I actually do believe that we need better signage, better planning, and Cameron hit the nail on the head. You can't get to these beauty spots unless you have some sort of transport to get there. And, you know, public transport is woeful across the country in these areas. Obviously, yesterday in the Berlin Gap one, you can't legislate for idiots. It needs better signage, better information, but if you take people away from it, you take income away from the community. You know, I think any organisation that's promoting a beauty spot that's making money out of it should be paying for better signage, better parking facilities, etc. I do not like the idea of cars being, you know, queuing up illegally, you could say. That's ridiculous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 27 minutes past midday. Now he's dodged bullets, survived an ambush, and now lives under constant threat. But Iranian dissident Hussein Abedini says he'll never back down.
Yes, and with Tehran accused of plotting attacks on UK soil, exiles here are being warned now to stay very alert. But Abedini says freedom's worth the risk.
Well, Hussein Abedini joins us now in the studio to discuss this. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
The attempts on your life made by the Iranian regime, there have been several of them.
That is right. I have been the target of serious assassination attempts. It first happened in Turkey when I was shot in the chest and also in the abdomen, very seriously wounded. I was in a coma condition for nearly 50 days and had to go through many, many surgeries to survive because they said, you know, my chances were very, very slim. But finally, after, you know, many operations, I managed, you know, to survive. But there were 2 more attacks on my life in the same hospital in Turkey under the disguise of the police and also people, claiming that they were my friends at the university. They came to hospital. They wanted to finish me off. But miraculously, I survived. And after that, I also have been in places where the Iranian regime had targeted. In 2018, there was a serious attempt by the Iranian regime to explode tens of thousands of Iranians who had gathered in Paris, in Villepinte in Paris. But, fortunately, at the very last moments, it was realized there was a very strong delegation of the UK parliamentarians in the same meeting. And an Iranian diplomat was involved in that, together with 3 other terrorists who were jailed. The Iranian diplomat was then sentenced to life imprisonment. But later, due to this appeasement policy, he was released, in a prisoner swap with Belgium.
And have you had threats to your life in this country?
I have actually been cautioned by the police. I've been approached by the anti-terrorism branch, and they've told me to be very vigilant because of the regime's attempts on the Iranian dissidents' lives. This regime has been behind some 500 major terrorist operations against Iranian dissidents as well as foreign nationals. 300 Iranian dissidents have died in these terrorist attacks. Many of my own colleagues with whom I have been in different international forums, they have been targeted, including 2 former Iranian ambassadors who had changed side and joined the resistance movement. They were targeted and killed, in one of them in United Nations European Center in Geneva, and the other one in Italy, in Rome. Because this regime, since its inception, has been really based on 2 levers, pillars. One of them is the internal executions and repression. The regime has been behind 120,000 executions of its political dissidents, the PMI, the main resistance movement, and also terrorism and exporting fundamentalism to other parts of the world.
And we've seen that writ large over the last 12 months, perhaps more than ever before. We've seen missiles fired from Iran to residential Israel. We've seen, of course, Hezbollah sponsored by Iran. But also, now the security services are suggesting there is more Iranian state activity, perhaps sponsoring terrorism in this country too.
That is true. Unfortunately, this has been the result of a policy, a weak policy, which has been, used in different times under different circumstances, giving it different names, a soft-line approach toward the Iranian regime. Whereas this regime has been emboldened as a result of this, and brazenly they have continued their murderous activities inside Iran. 1,200 people have been executed only under Masoud Pezeshkian, the new so-called more moderate of the president of the regime. But the supreme leader of the regime is at the top of the Supreme National Security Council of the regime, where all the decisions for terrorist actions are taken. So I think it's very important and commendable what the intelligence and the police is doing in this country. But I think that has to be coupled with a very firm and comprehensive policy targeting the IRGC. There are 4 things which I think should be done, as it was reiterated by the president-elect of the Iranian resistance, Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, in different conferences. First of all, the UK Home Office should proscribe the IRGC as a terrorist organization.
The Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
Exactly, because now its arms, like an octopus, is reaching different parts of the world, and it has now, unfortunately, reached this country.
And very quickly, what are the other things that must be done?
Yes. Well, the other things is secondly, they have to, the UK must have a proactive position to activate the mechanism, snapback mechanism on the Iranian regime in the nuclear deal, to reinstate, all the United Nations things against the regime, sanctions against the regime. And thirdly, they should support the right of the Iranian people to overthrow this regime and to support the democratic opposition movement for the establishment of a democratic government, and close down the Iranian embassies and all its front companies.
Well, there's a lot that needs to be done, clearly. Hussein Abedini, we really appreciate time. Sorry we have to cut it short, but we've run out of time. That's the music playing there. Hussein Abedini there, thank you very much.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more to come. knocks time at the top running out. Rumblings inside the Tory ranks could spell trouble. Find out what's really going on after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. The government is reportedly rethinking its cut to the winter fuel payment for pensioners following Labour's results in their local elections last week. While a full reversal of the policy is not expected, Number 10 is reportedly considering whether to increase the £11,500 threshold over which pensioners are no longer eligible for the allowance. Labour MPs have consistently complained about cutting welfare, as other benefits cuts are set to come into effect from June. Health Secretary Wes Streeting told GB News that while he didn't recognise those reports, he understands the concerns of voters. Well, sticking with welfare, Welsh First Minister Baroness Eleanor Morgan is set to criticise Sir Keir Starmer's welfare reforms in a major speech today, calling for a rethink in the decision to means test the winter fuel allowance. Elsewhere, police have launched an investigation after 2 superbike riders died in a chain reaction collision during a championship race. 21-year-old Owen Jenner and 29-year-old Shane Richardson were both treated trackside but later died after the race at Alton Park in Cheshire yesterday. 11 riders fell at the first corner of the Quattro Group British Supersport Championship, and a third rider, 47-year-old Tom Tunstall, sustained significant injuries. The competition was stopped immediately and medical services were deployed. Briefly to Germany, where Conservative leader Friedrich Merz failed to reach the parliamentary majority needed to become Chancellor this morning in the first round of voting, in what was an unexpected setback for his new coalition with the centre-left Social Democrats. The lower house of Parliament now has 14 days to elect Merz or another candidate Chancellor with an outright majority. Reports are suggesting that the Parliament there won't attempt another vote later today. And today marks the 2-year anniversary of the coronation of Their Majesties King Charles and Queen Camilla. The King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery fired a 41-gun royal salute in Hyde Park to mark the occasion. 2 commissioned Coronation State portraits have been unveiled by Their Majesties in the Central Hall at the National Gallery. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3361 and 1.1796 euros. The price of gold is £2,531.97 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,589 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello, I'm here with your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Plenty of fine weather on offer as we go through the rest of today and, well, for the rest of this week, really, with high pressure firmly in control. That's going to keep our weather pretty settled. That being said, a little bit further away from the centre of the high towards the southeast of England, there will be a bit of a breeze today, and across some parts of eastern England, a bit more cloud, perhaps even a few showers developing too. Also, a little bit of showery rain affecting Orkney and Shetland, where it's also going to be quite cloudy. But otherwise, many places having a fine, dry day with a good deal of sunshine and with mostly light winds, feeling pretty warm in that sunshine too, with temperatures peaking mid, possibly high teens Celsius, highs of around 18 or 19 Celsius at best. Now, there won't be a huge amount of change as we go through into this evening, so Orkney and Shetland still quite cloudy here, and a few further bursts of rain are quite possible. Across the rest of Scotland, though, largely fine, good deal of sunshine as we go through the end of the day, just a bit of cloud here and there. A similar story across parts of Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales, albeit some of that cloud across eastern parts of England will have filtered a little bit further south and westwards as we go through the afternoon. So some central southern parts, a bit cloudy at times, but that cloud is going to really kind of break up as we go through later on. So that takes us into a dry night for most, 1 or 2 showers perhaps, but on the whole, a dry picture with a good deal of clear skies. As a result, even though it's going to be relatively warm by day, we are still going to have some fairly chilly nights. Could see a touch of frost in some prone rural spots, not quite as cold as it was last night, but nonetheless, a bit of frost could cause some problems for some gardeners out there. Then as we go through tomorrow, yes, a bit of a chilly start, but it's going to be another bright, fine day for many of us. A few showers coming through here and there. None of them look particularly heavy, and most of us will avoid them, with a good deal of sunshine, and temperatures even a little bit higher compared to today could get into the low 20s.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Northamptonshire road users face congestion on the M1 northbound between junctions 16 and 18, all lanes closed. Traffic should normalise by 1:45 this afternoon. In Stoke-on-Trent, drivers on the A500 southbound between the A34 Newcastle-under-Lyme and the M6 should expect 10-minute delays, resolved by 12:37. The M73 northbound off-slip at junction 2A is closed for maintenance with diversions. Both directions of the M4, from junction 22 Pilning to junction 23 Rogier, are closed with diversions. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Well, it's 12:40. Good afternoon, Britain. Now, are the Conservatives, are the Tories plotting behind the scenes to kick Kemi out of her position?
Well, after poor local elections results saw Reform UK take key Conservative councils, a number of the party's MPs are now allegedly planning to oust Kemi Badenoch as Conservative Party leader. That's so unlike Conservative MPs.
Never done it before, have they? Never done it before. Well, joining us now is former Conservative leader and current MP for Chingford and Woodford Green, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith. Thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon. It's not looking great, is it, for Kemi Badenoch? I mean, it does appear that a number of senior Tories have been briefing the newspapers saying it's about time she gave it up. What do you reckon?
Before I answer that question, can I just agree with your previous interviewee? I have been arguing, as some of my colleagues have, for the Iranian Republican Guard to be, a Revolutionary Guard, I beg your pardon, to be prescribed for all the things that they do. And I don't understand why the last government wouldn't do it, and I don't understand why this government is so resistant to. Others have done it. We need to do it, because these people, we need to lock them up, get rid of them out of the country, because they are an absolute nightmare, and they are very, very nasty.
Yeah, I mean, if they're funding terrorism around the world and in this country, why not? But yes, to the point on Kemi Badenoch, I mean, it does appear that a number of your colleagues are saying nasty things to the media.
Well, you know, here we go again. Sometimes some of my colleagues take a leave of all sense. The reality is that if you really want to ask the question, what did the voters say to us last Thursday, we'll ask, what did they say to us last year? They told us they wanted us out because they'd lost faith in us. They thought that we had turned in on ourselves, we were not to be relied upon, and that they felt that their lives were lesser than they should be. So, you know, the point I make is that yes, last Thursday was if the shock, it's a seismic shock following the earthquake that took place last year. They're saying exactly the same as they said to us last year. So what we have to recognise is what's the reason for that. And if we're looking for some kind of messiah figure to arrive and to take us to the promised land, then those that are waiting will be having a long,
It's getting worse,
wait.
though, isn't it? I mean, performing worse than in the general election. I mean, these local elections, pretty dreadful for the Conservatives, losing 674 seats. 15 councils you've lost control of in what should have been the blue Tory heartlands. I mean, if things are getting worse, is it not time for a rethink?
No, I don't think so. And I don't believe they're getting worse, because they were pretty rock bottom already. The fact is that this, as I say, was a follow-up to last year where nothing pretty much has changed. And it takes a little while.
Sir Ian, with respect, at the general election, the Conservatives won 24% of the vote. In these local elections, the projected national share was 15%.
It's a projected national share of a very small number of councillors that were elected or got rid of. We've got to be very sensible about this. What we're looking at right now is the reality, which is the public want to see some big change for us, not in personnel particularly. What they want to see us in is to make sure that the things that we are on and the solutions that we've got deal with the problems that they face in their everyday lives. And I said it's hugely on the agenda is the issue of migration. Are we prepared, if necessary, to take the big decisions over whether or not we stay with the convention on this, or whether we, if necessary, leave the convention? They want to know about their high streets. I mean, I've got shoplifting is rife in my constituency. I'm not alone in this. It's not, by the way, the theft of a sandwich for some poor person who can't afford it. These are the thousands of pounds of thefts in Boots and various other shops, threatening behaviour. The gangs are involved in it. The judiciary give them a slap on the wrist. They're back on the streets again within the 24-hour period and back robbing the shops again. And the police seem to have disappeared in many cases off the high streets. When I spoke to them, they say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Well, that is the key. They want to know, how are you going to restore the quality of our lives? The gang warfare, the stabbings, the murders, the threats, the drug dealing, all this sort of stuff is part of the problem that they feel.
Sir Ian, we're running out of time. I just want to get
critical.
One last question to you, if I may. Of course, we saw Boris Johnson wounded and then brought down following a confidence vote. We saw the same with Theresa May. Back in 2003, you yourself as party leader were removed through that same confidence process. What advice would you give to Kemi Baker?
I was ahead by 3 points from Tony Blair, the only time we ever went ahead of him, but I'm not going to make a point about that. Well, the reality is we've got a reputation, and the public likes to see a bit of stability, and they like to. And the main thing that they took was that when Boris went, whether they had problems or not, I think the public thinks that when they elect a prime minister, they'd like to have the decision made about him, not a bunch of smally unrepresentative group of politicians who say we don't like this individual anymore, so we're going to get rid of them. And
so Kemi Badenoch should just.
In this. We do this the whole time.
She should just stick to what she's doing. Then no
You've got to get on with it. We have a big case. Get on the streets with the people that feel their quality of their life is suffering, and sort that out. That is what they want to hear, and they want to find that we've got migration down like we promised, because we must take whatever action is necessary to defend our borders, and that is where we will have to be.
OK, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, thanks indeed for joining us and talking through the prospects of the current Conservative Party.
Yes, let us know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Is it over for Kemi Badenoch? Should it be, or should people give her a bit more time? 6 months it's been, right?
Well, maybe people just need to reassess, perhaps have a holiday, soak up some sun. Maybe then they'll get clearer heads. And if they do, they might want to check the weather for those top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, if you're off to Greece in the next few days, it's good news. There's some hot sunshine on the way. Elsewhere, though, changeable with showers and particularly unsettled across Madeira on Wednesday with some stronger winds and longer spells of rain. Scattered showers also across parts of Iberia, but the heaviest thunderstorms across northern Italy and the Balkans on Wednesday, perhaps giving some flash flooding in places. Drier and sunnier across the south of Italy and across Greece, though, for the rest of this week, and it will feel warm in that sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. The name's Trump. Donald Trump. Yes, he's got all eyes hooked on Hollywood in the latest tariff thriller.
Very good, Tom. The President of the United States, he wants to impose a 100% tariff on films not made in the United States.
So could Donald Trump be the one to kill off James Bond?
Well, joining us now to discuss this is economist Catherine McBride. Catherine, some people have given Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt over all of these tariffs and things, but has he gone too far here?
Well, it'll be tricky because the president only has the power to put tariffs on for three reasons. It's either national security, safeguarding a domestic industry from a surge of imports that could wipe them out, or intellectual property theft or unfair trade practices. Unfortunately, with the film industry, I don't think he could really level that at anyone, especially not at the UK's industry, because we tend to make our own ideas. We're very good at creating things, and we've invented a whole lot of the visual effects that film companies use so that they may film it somewhere else, maybe in Canada.
Could he not
but they will
claim unfair trade practices, given that we subsidise filmmaking in this country to a large degree? Big tax breaks to Hollywood firms who kind of film the big hits like Wicked or the new Wonka film or any of these things, all filmed in the UK despite being American creations.
Well, a lot of things are filmed here with American money, but the stars or the visual effects or a lot of the parts of the film are actually UK inputs, so that they are funding it, and they also get the distribution rights with that. So the profits are going back to America and being taxed, even though the jobs are here. But we're not the only country to be subsidizing film. And I think that it's possibly a mistake. I know a lot of the things we do produce here. America is huge for the UK. It's about 25% of our revenue from film and television, even things that are UK born and bred, whether it's Aardman's, Wallace and Gromit or Peppa Pig or any of the things that are 100% UK. We are reliant on selling them in the US. But I think he wants to stop people moving their film studio to Canada and filming a scene in Vancouver or Toronto and pretending it's somewhere in America. But unfortunately for Trump, even without the subsidies that the Canadian government does give the US film companies, it's still going to be cheaper to close down a smaller city than it is to close down a section of New York or a section of Los Angeles, so San Francisco. So everyone will always gravitate to a place.
Well, Catherine, I'm afraid we've run to the end of the segment, but thanks so much for talking us through what is an interesting turn in US tariff policy.
No, don't steal James Bond, please. Thank you very much. We'll be keeping him. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. We're going to be live at another gun salute, but this time at the Tower of London, so don't go anywhere.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. Here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Now, the weather through much of this week is going to continue in a similar vein to how it started, with lots of fine, dry and at times sunny weather on offer, because high pressure is going to continue to dominate our picture, leaving things pretty settled. Now, it has been sunny for many of us today, but not everywhere. There has been a swathe of cloud across some parts of eastern England, and that swathe of cloud is pushing its way southwestwards as we go through this evening and the start of the night, but it does then break up a little bit, and otherwise, yes, there will be a bit of cloud here and there, maybe even one or two showers, but generally it's looking dry with some clear skies. As a result, again, it's going to turn a bit chilly, perhaps not quite as cold as last night, but nonetheless, in some rural spots away from the towns and cities, a touch of frost is possible first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow, pretty bright start for most of us. Again, there will be a few showers here and there towards some North Sea coastal parts of East Anglia, a few showers perhaps, but generally it's largely dry, and there should be a good deal of sunshine. Not wall-to-wall blue skies necessarily, but a few sunny periods for most of us. A bit more sunshine perhaps on offer for large chunks of Scotland, but across the far north of mainland Scotland and also Orkney and Shetland, similar to today really, there's probably going to be a bit more cloud here, and again we could see some outbreaks of rain pushing through. Otherwise, and apart from a few showers here and there, none of them looking particularly heavy, and most of us will avoid these, it's going to be a mostly fine day. Plenty of sunshine on offer yet again, and with that sunshine and temperatures a little bit higher than today, there's a good chance it's going to feel pretty warm for most of us, could just about get into the low 20s Celsius. Little changes as we go through the evening tomorrow. Again, it's looking largely fine, and once more we're going to have a bit of a chilly night Wednesday night into Thursday. Looking through the rest of the week, and as I mentioned, high pressures sticking around, so lots of fine sunny weather to come, and our temperatures are going to be creeping up as well. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
It is cruel, because I think children are only your children for 16 years, 18 years, right? And then they go and they have to do all this stuff for themselves. I think while they're young, their main priorities should be their education, coming in, doing their homework, getting to bed, getting enough sleep. My children, for example, are 11 and 16, so one's doing his GCSEs, the other still randomly has a ton of homework, even 11. By the time they've come in and done their homework, they're exhausted and they go to bed. I just don't think it is my job as a parent to tell them to then go and mop the floor or hoover their bedrooms. Their main focus is their education at this age.
Yeah. You made my blood run cold there talking about homework, because I'm not a believer in homework. I think school is where you do work, and then you come home, and home is where you can do anything else that you want to do. But I just think it's just all too much.
I think this is a tricky one, because we're not talking about Victorian Britain or sending children up chimneys. We're talking making your bed, tidying your room. I think it's a great help for people to do chores around the house. There's been several studies where they've seen that it's had beneficial well-being for children. And I think it's just about learning about time management, confidence, resilience. These are just basic life skills. So many people these days, teenagers, grow up and they don't have them, and then they're going off to university or whatever. I saw a really funny video actually of a mum who couldn't get her child to clean up, so she got black rice, sprinkled it around the room and told him it was mouse droppings. Now, I don't know if we need to go that far, but I do think it's good for children as a whole.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is now 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 6th of May. I'm Emily Carver.
I'm Tom Harwood.
And yes, military celebrations taking place in London today. We're now at the Tower of London. It's all to mark the anniversary of the coronation of Their Majesties the King and Queen.
Well, the Honourable Artillery Company fire a 62-gun salute at Tower Wharf. We can see the preparations there. The guns are due to start at the top of the hour.
Now, earlier we were in Hyde Park, weren't we? One of the royal parks. Now we're at the Tower of London, Tower Wharf. It's a spectacular sight this always is when we see these types of gun salutes.
Certainly is, and this one's bigger and better. 61 guns about to fire to celebrate the anniversary of the coronation of His Majesty the King.
Battery right. I will control the timer. Number one. Move. Good. Round one. Round two. Round three.
There we have it. The 62-gun salute has begun there at the Tower of London at Tower Wharf. Delighted to be joined in the studio by the author of Modern Monarchy, Dr. Craig Prescott. Why then, Craig, are there 62 rounds being fired here, whereas earlier in Hyde Park there are only 41?
So 21 is the standard gun salute. Then there's an extra 20 if it takes place in a royal park or royal palace. And here you have an extra 21 because this is taking place in the City of London.
Oh.
So there's extra 21 are for the City of London.
Oh, well, that's simple.
The City of London has always held this sort of significant place in British cultural life. The treaties between the city and the monarchy, sort of the monarchy in Westminster, the city, the other side of the river, this sort of constant relationship and independence that has been, well, going since time immemorial.
Yes, the City of London has always had its own sort of self-governance and has always been unique. The Square Mile has been a unique area, you know, in London, and you know, we talk about London as being an entity, but actually, of course, there's two cities: the City of London and the City of Westminster. And you know, that sort of shows the City of London's sort of constitutional independence. You know, it's the City of London police that control the City of London. It's not the Metropolitan Police. You know, all these things are sort of legacies of history that play out today in our institutions.
Absolutely. Well, Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, is there for us. We'll speak to him in a little bit. But for those sort of passing through central London, passing through this area of London, if you didn't know that it was the anniversary of the King and Queen's coronation, you wouldn't have any idea necessarily what this was all about, would you?
Well, no, this is one of those things of living or being in London that you can just end up stumbling across something like this. And, you know, it's sort of, this has become an annual fixture. You know, this took place last year, and it's taken place again to mark the King's coronation, and serves as a reminder of that day. It's also part of that sort of little bit of ceremony that makes up the monarchy, that sort of almost happens on a day-by-day basis. Of course, this doesn't happen every day, but it's one of those regular reminders that you have that you are in, effectively, royal London.
Well, let's cross now to our royal correspondent there at the Tower of London for us. Cameron, quite the sound, quite the sight.
Well, quite sound and sight, Tom. Of course, this is His Majesty's historic palace and fortress, the Honourable Artillery Company firing that 62-gun salute, as you've been saying, in the studio. Quite poignant today as well, of course, 2 years on since the coronation, but also this morning, the King and Queen were at the National Gallery unveiling 2 new coronation portraits of themselves to the public 2 years on from that historic day. But of course, this is the pomp and pageantry in action, isn't it, of the British monarchy and indeed the British state. It is the Armed Forces way of commemorating their Commander-in-Chief's coronation 2 years ago. And of course, I'm stood here in the grounds of the Tower of London, just underneath the White Tower, where there is a beautiful display of ceramic poppies. First here in 2014, of course, to commemorate the start of World War I. Today, repurposed, given back to the Tower by the Imperial War Museum to commemorate 80 years since the end of the Second World War, or victory in Europe, I should say, because, of course, the war in Japan didn't end until mid-August. And we are expecting Her Majesty the Queen to come and visit these ceramic poppies a little bit later on this afternoon, so it's a very busy day here at the Tower of London.
He is, and Cameron, looking at the smoke, the activity, the blank rounds, thankfully, that are being fired over one of the densest parts of the country, and the sort of hubbub of people who walk around it. It is quite a contrast to see this tradition, this ancient tradition, and these, well, old-fashioned guns and artillery in the middle of such a modern city.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom, and I suspect if they were live rounds, of course, City Hall would be no more as they fire towards them on the other side of the river. But you're right, we do kind of keep this era alive. King Street Royal Horse Artillery is another example who fired the guns in Green Park at midday to commemorate the coronation. First World War era guns, because it is that showing that military history and that tradition that we've got in this country. And of course, it does give the tourists a bit of a jump when the guns first start firing, but of course they get the message of what is going on a little bit later on as the guns keep on firing. And of course, as I said, this is a historic palace here at the Tower of London. 1,000 years of history. Yeoman sergeants keep the crown jewels safe, because of course in the jewel house just very close by to where I'm standing is St Edward's crown, which was worn by King Charles III at the moment of his crowning 2 years ago today, almost to exact minute actually, and of course all the other crown jewels as well used during that coronation. So it is really a focal point, I think, of British tradition and values.
Hey there for us. We're just going to bring in Dr. Craig Prescott, who's here in the studio. If we cast our minds back to the coronation, of course, an absolutely spectacular affair. It's been 2 years. And King Charles, has he achieved what he set out to achieve, do you believe, as monarch?
Well, the fundamental theme of the coronation was, being called to serve. And I think we've seen that, he has, lived up to that in difficult circumstances, given his cancer diagnosis. And I think, in some ways, it's been quite remarkable how active he has been, given that he is undergoing cancer treatment, and that appears to be ongoing. And that, shows, a very real commitment to duty.
And how do you feel he's dealt with family troubles, with the Prince Harry, being so open about the fact that his relationship with his father is in tatters?
Yes, I think at times keeping a dignified silence might be the best way to go in response to that. That there are things that are perhaps better resolved behind closed doors and not in the glare of television cameras. That there are some difficult issues, no doubt, the issue of security is, of course, an important one for members of the royal family. They aren't free from threats. But I think these are things that are better played out behind closed doors and not in the courts or in the television cameras.
Yes, I'm sure he wishes that were the case.
Now, of course, you're the author of Modern Monarchy. But is that not in and of itself a bit of an oxymoron? The idea that this ancient institution that we're seeing here at this 1,000-year-old Tower of London, commemorating an event that really began in Westminster with Edward the Confessor, in what then became a grand Norman abbey. The idea of monarchy as this institution, as something that could be modern, might seem rather jarring.
Well, yes, it's and I think that's the fascinating thing about the monarchy, that it isn't a museum piece, that it is a living and breathing institution that constitutionally is at the heart of our democracy and the heart of our constitution. And, that paradox of being, as you say, this medieval institution, but in the 21st century of a country that is the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world, that there is, there is that paradox, and it is how the monarchy navigates the changing times, as this ancient institution.
It is so interesting to see that paradox, almost visually on our screens here. You can see a tourist bus going over Tower Bridge as
They've got a good sight, don't they?
As these guns are being fired. I mean, it does show the old with the new.
Yes, absolutely. And I was just thinking when Cameron was talking about the crown jewels being in the Tower of London. Of course, on this day 2 years ago, of course, they were being used. And if you went to the Tower of London, the cupboard would be bare and there would be signs saying "in use." And that happened as a state.
You to go up there. Let's bring in Cameron Walker while he's there for us. Cameron, of course, it's an incredibly busy week for the royal family. Can you give us an idea of what else is on the agenda this week? Of course, we have Victory Day in Europe on Thursday. It is.
Yeah, we absolutely do, Emily. Of course, very busy day yesterday with a tea party for veterans and the military procession up the Mall towards Buckingham Palace. Later on this afternoon, Her Majesty the Queen will be where I am here at the Tower of London to unveil this ceramic poppy display commemorating 80 years since the end of the Second World War. On Thursday, there is a service of Thanksgiving at Westminster Abbey where we suspect senior members of the royal family will attend, including the King and Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales and the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. There's also a special concert taking place on Horse Guards Parade, again attended by senior royals, which will be broadcast to the nation as well. And then also the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, she is visiting Guernsey and Sark on the weekends to commemorate 80 years since the liberation of the Channel Islands from Nazi occupation. Of course, Channel Islands was the only part of the British Isles as a crown dependency, or two crown dependencies, which were invaded by Nazi Germany and occupied for almost 5 years. So that would be particularly poignant for them to have the King's sister there to help with those celebrations.
Absolutely. And Cameron, this is, of course, an entire week of those celebrations. We've seen a really rather busy monarchy yesterday, today, and throughout the rest of the week. But it's moments like these, is it not, that are the time when perhaps Britain stands out as a country that can do this sort of pomp, this sort of pageantry, this sort of spectacle in a greater and perhaps more consistent way than other countries around the world.
Well, exactly, Tom, and you kind of saw it yesterday, actually, when we were down outside Buckingham Palace broadcasting to you all from Buckingham Palace, because the amount of international media that were there and the amount of tourists that were there, they genuinely care and have a huge interest in the royal family and how we do pomp and pageantry, and what that translates to in terms of the benefit to Britain, arguably, or many people would argue, is that soft power that the royal family musters, particularly when it comes to strengthening relations on the world stage. President Trump, for example, a huge fan of the British monarchy and King Charles in particular. Could that potentially help us get a better trade deal? That's, of course, up to the politicians, but the phrase goes that the royal family would butter up a president or another monarch or a prime minister or something, so then the tough political negotiations can take place afterwards. So that is one of the reasons why we continue these traditions of pomp and pageantry, because it does interest people from around the world.
Charles, he's had a difficult time recently. Of course, we were just mentioning Prince Harry and his interview where he spoke about how fractious their relationship is. Do you get a sense that King Charles has perhaps, I don't know how to paraphrase this in a polite way, almost given up on his son coming to the table in a quiet way rather than speaking to the press? I mean, is reconciliation completely, out of the picture at this stage?
I would say certainly in the short term it would be. I think yesterday the King and other members of the royal family were channeling that famous wartime slogan, keep calm and carry on, despite what the bombshell his Prince Harry dropped on Friday with that BBC interview. Look, I think what it showed, I think a lot of people would argue, is that they're not going to be able to have those private discussions without the risk of those private discussions ending up in the public domain. That would be the risk for the royal family in speaking to Prince Harry and trying to reconcile. Prince Harry says he wants reconciliation. I'm sure, and that's what he says. But he also wants security. And the problem is that King Charles is head of state. It's his government. It is his court, and that is exactly what Prince Harry was suing in His Majesty's courtroom. So it's a really difficult situation for the King.
OK, well, Cameron Walker, thanks for being there live at the Tower of London for us. And indeed, thanks to Dr. Craig Prescott for joining us as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, we're going to go live now to Downing Street because Catherine Forster, our political correspondent, has just left a briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman. There's a lot going on, but Catherine, what have the government had to say, or what at least has the Prime Minister had to say about all this speculation about a winter fuel payment U-turn?
Yes, well, good afternoon from Downing Street. The speculation rife this morning that some changes in the offing, perhaps the threshold, would be raised. But the Prime Minister's official spokesman's exact words this afternoon were, the policy as set out will not be changed. Not just that it's not changing now or any time soon, that it will not be changed. Now, the lobby briefing ran for a whole hour. That's very, very long. Obviously, a huge number of topics, especially after the local election results on Friday and that by-election. We also had the Prime Minister's press secretary there. That's something that's quite unusual, and he spoke a little bit at the beginning, and he said that they've really got loud and clear the public's impatience for change. He says, we get it. Our plan for change will deliver the changes to working people's lives they want to see. He went on to list some of the many things that they're doing, and he said, we were elected as a stable and serious party after 14 years of chaos and decline. We will not be blown off course. Also said they're not going to listen to what he called noises off, and went on to say, other parties faff about with flags, we remain focused on delivering national renewal. The faff about with flags clearly taking a pop at reform after their announcement yesterday that only British flags would be flown at council offices. So also on the grooming gangs, the Prime Minister's official spokesman doesn't know if he's watched that Channel 4 documentary, but on Lucy Powell's comments and the suggestion that they had belittled the experience of victims, the Prime Minister apparently has full confidence in Lucy Powell, and she has publicly apologised, and the message seems to be move on, nothing to see here.
So the Prime Minister was so desperate for every school in the land to watch adolescents, but we don't know from the spokesperson there whether the Prime Minister has watched that Channel 4 documentary into the grooming gangs. So there you go.
Yeah, well, Catherine, thanks indeed for joining us. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on. Well, of course, that news on the winter fuel allowance that the government is not going to change its policy despite this speculation will come as a bit of a blow to many people. Let's speak to a pensioner now. Joining us from Newcastle is Ellen Russell. Ellen, thanks indeed for being with us. What do you make of that news that the government's going to stick to its guns on the winter fuel allowance?
I think that it's absolutely appalling that even if they had raised the threshold, pensioners in this country, if you've worked, now listen carefully here to what I'm going to say. If you've worked all your life in this country, you're on a pension of £220.20. If you have anything below £218, you can claim all of the benefits. Now, that's the people who haven't worked all of their lives in this country can claim the benefits. The hard-working people in this country who are living on 220, and we're not talking about the rich here, we're not talking about professional people, we're talking about your hairdressers, your labourers, your shop assistants, your hoteliers. You're talking about the working class people in this country that are living on they haven't been able to save money and put money into savings accounts. They're living on £221.20. And that's an impossible task, and they cannot claim another penny. That £300 winter fuel allowance was a lifeline. Get yourselves down the shopping malls. Tell the Labour government to go and say the old people who are sitting on metros, sitting on buses, sitting around this country, sitting in shopping malls trying to stay warm. That's because they have to sit in the seats in the shopping malls because they cannot afford to get a coffee in the Marks and Spencers or any of your shops. So they sit around the shopping malls.
Ellen, what do you make of the government's? What do you make of the government's stance, Ellen? I can hear the passion in your voice. What do you make of the government's stance? They say, you know what, we need to make savings somewhere, and this is one of the ways we can make savings. We don't have all the money in the world.
Hit the vulnerable, hit the working class, hit the WASPy, don't pay the WASPy women their compensation when it was proved they had maladministration. The Labour government stood for 10 years with us, with the WASPy women. They're liars, they're deceived, they betrayed the country, they betrayed the working classes in this country, they betrayed the farmers, they betrayed all the small businesses. And the only people that haven't betrayed, and I'm going to leave that to your imagination because otherwise the police might come to my door.
All right, well, Ellen, thank you very much indeed for coming and sharing your thoughts so passionately on our show. Ellen Russell, really appreciate it. A pensioner from Newcastle there with a lot to say about the government's decisions. It's so true, though, isn't it? They did stand with the WASPy women. Yeah, they did talk about how cuts...
It's completely the hypocrisy.
Not what people were expecting if they went into the ballot box for Labour.
But I think Ellen Russell should have a show on GB News after that.
Yeah.
Goodness me. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more to come.
Yes, is Kemi Badenoch's time at the top running out? Rumblings inside the Tory ranks could spell trouble, but after the break...
Work and student visas are in the crosshairs now as the UK moves to block rising asylum seekers from overstayers. So who's on the hit list and why is this only happening now?
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 1:25. We're still reeling from that interview with Ellen there.
Yeah,
Fiery
absolutely.
stuff. Good stuff.
Passionate.
Get it off your chest.
But the UK could soon tighten visa rules for countries seen as high risk for overstaying asylum claims.
Yes, this is interesting. Reports suggest that the government is planning to curb applications from Pakistan, Nigeria and Sri Lanka as parts of efforts to cut net migration. Formal proposals are expected in the upcoming immigration white paper. Is that coming next week, Tom?
I believe so, but don't quote me on that.
OK, well, we're joined by immigration lawyer Paul Turner, who perhaps knows. Paul, it does seem like we're being drip-fed quite a lot of proposals from the government at the moment ahead of this bill. The government knows that a lot of people are very upset about the levels of immigration. Is this one way that they could try and curb it? What do you reckon?
Well, they certainly could. I've read some of the articles about this. So the problem is that I think some 16,000 people that claimed asylum were actually, they entered the United Kingdom as students. And you've mentioned the top countries being Pakistan, Nigeria and Sri Lanka. And there's a suspicion that people are using the student route as a way into claiming asylum and obtaining free accommodation. Now, the problem that's there is that unless one puts a ban on everybody, who's going to be judging whether the people coming over are genuinely coming to study, or they've perhaps paid somebody to get them a student visa and they have no intention of studying? Now, I would acknowledge that there does seem to be a problem in regard to this. I've met quite a lot of people, or I'm aware of quite a lot of cases where people simply had no intention of actually studying, and as soon as they entered the United Kingdom, they didn't continue with their courses, and then they vanish from the system, and then perhaps when they're encountered, claim asylum. So it is a real problem.
But Paul, to counter your point on how do we decide, well, perhaps we don't have to decide. Perhaps what we need to do is just limit the number of institutions that are able to, in effect, sell visas. I mean, it's pretty clear that there are a whole bunch of universities or educational institutions in this country that aren't near the top of those academic league tables, that do seem to rely overwhelmingly on foreign individuals coming in and becoming students. If we were to limit that sort of international student visa to just the Russell Group of universities, or perhaps just the top 5 or 10, this clearly wouldn't be an issue.
No, I agree with you, Tom. The restriction on who can sponsor people or issue visas has been going on for about 15 years now. It used to be the English language school above the kebab shop, and then it was restricted to universities. And of course, and universities market these as a product, as something to be sold. They employ agents and people in various countries, such as the countries we know about, to sell their courses. And so there'll be a huge pushback on this. Another way of doing it perhaps would be for individuals from the countries where this is a problem. Perhaps they would have to put forward more money, or they would have to show that they have more money before they're granted the student visa. Now, before people start kicking off at its discrimination and people are being unfairly targeted, in this area, the government is afforded a large amount of leeway. So if they made it much harder for, say, Pakistanis or Sri Lankans to come here and study, and other lawyers sought to challenge it on the basis of discrimination, I don't think the courts would actually back up the challengers, because there wouldn't be discrimination, because everybody from that country would be subject to the new criteria. So this potentially could work if there's a desire to do it.
Yes, although we do often find that the Home Office loses when it comes to these types of cases or similar. But Paul Turner, thank you very much indeed. You're an immigration lawyer. I'm quite struck by this statistic. Some 40,000 foreign nationals who came as overseas students, migrant workers or visitors last year sought asylum.
Yeah, I mean,
so you're thinking, the Home Office are thinking they're coming here to do a bit of studying, a bit of working, a bit of visiting, and then actually they come here and they suddenly need asylum.
It's a racket.
It is a racket. I'm sorry, you can't deny it's a racket, not a racket.
A total racket. And actually, because it's less visible, because these people come here on a legitimate visa to start with, it hasn't been so high up the political agenda. But this completely dwarfs the number of people who are coming across on small boats.
Yes, and how many people are coming across because they really want to do their 3-year course in whatever it is? And how many people are coming here because they want to get a job and send some money back home and things, and start a life here?
I think that surely just a handful of institutions should be able to have those study visas.
Well, a lot would close. Is that a problem?
It's not a problem. If you're a bad university, you should close. You shouldn't prop yourself up with cheap foreign students.
Also, some very interesting polling about Labour voters and their attitudes to immigration has just dropped. We're going to bring you that very soon. But also, forget the thick hair and boyish charm. Women's top turn-on might just leave you reaching for the razor. Find out which surprising male feature made the hot list.
But after the break, is Kemi Badenoch's time at the top running out? Well, rumblings inside the Tory ranks could spell trouble. All to come after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 31 minutes past 1. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. Downing Street has ruled out a U-turn on means testing the winter fuel payment this lunchtime. That comes after reports that the government was reportedly rethinking its cut to the allowance. Number 10 was reportedly considering whether to increase the £11,500 threshold over which pensioners are no longer eligible for the allowance. However, the Prime Minister's official spokesman said that, quote, the policy is set out, there will not be a change to the government's policy, adding that the decision was taken to repair public finances inherited from the last government. While sticking with welfare, Welsh First Minister Baroness Eluned Morgan has criticised Sir Keir Starmer's welfare reforms in a major speech today, calling for a rethink in the decision to means test the winter fuel allowance. Police have launched an investigation after 2 superbike riders died in a chain reaction collision during a championship race. 21-year-old Owen Jenner and 29-year-old Shane Richardson were both treated trackside, but later died after the race at Alton Park in Cheshire yesterday. 11 riders fell at the first corner of the Quattro Group British Supersport Championship, and a third rider, 47-year-old Tom Tunstall, sustained significant injuries. The competition was stopped immediately and medical services were deployed. Briefly to Germany, where there will be a second round of voting in the election for Chancellor later today, after Conservative leader Friedrich Merz failed to reach the parliamentary majority needed to become Chancellor this morning in the first round of voting. That was an unexpected setback for his new coalition with the centre-left Social Democrats. The lower house of Parliament now has 14 days to elect Merz or another candidate Chancellor with an outright majority. And reports are suggesting that that second vote will take place at 3 p.m. local time. And today marks the 2-year anniversary of the coronation of Their Majesties King Charles and Queen Camilla. The King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery fired a 41-gun Royal Salute in Hyde Park, and the Honourable Artillery Company fired a 62-gun Royal Salute from Tower Wharf to mark the occasion. 2 commissioned coronation state portraits have been unveiled by Their Majesties in the Central Hall at the National Gallery. The portraits, which will form part of the Royal Collection, were painted by 2 different artists personally selected by the King and Queen. His Majesty chose to be painted by Peter Kuhfeld, and Queen Camilla selected Paul S. Benny. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
What are you so happy about?
I just made a claim.
My Claim Group.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3374 and 1.1807 euros. The price of gold is £2,523.69 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,589 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. At 35 minutes past 1, in around an hour's time, Reform's newest MP, Sarah Pochin, will be sworn in after, of course, winning that by-election last week.
Yes, quite dramatically. There she is, walking down through Westminster with Nigel Farage and the rest of the clan in tow.
Indeed, this is the photo opportunity that the Reform MPs are taking before that swearing in just under an hour's time. So there they are, walking just outside Parliament for what looks like a big gaggle of photographers.
Can you name them all, Tom? Not very difficult.
Well, there's Richard Tice, there's James McMurdoch, Nigel Farage, Lee Anderson and Sarah Pochin.
Very good.
Of course, there was one other Reform MP who is no longer a Reform MP. Rupert Lowe, elected as Reform, has left the party. Doesn't look like he's going to come back anytime soon.
No, it does not. Lots of sour words thrown about on that one. But yes, they're all smiling there. Is Lee Anderson even giving a smile?
That's a rare sight. But perhaps he is. But this is important for Reform because they're breaking through what many people has termed as this sort of boys' club image. Now, 2 of their most sort of prominently elected figures are women, Sarah Pochin and Andrea Jenkins.
Didn't do too badly last Thursday, did we?
But now, in the reality of trying to make your voice heard in Parliament, just the 5 of you, what difference can it make?
You know what? We can speak up for millions who aren't represented. This current Parliament is so unrepresentative of where most of the country is on big fundamental issues. We'll speak for them.
I just wonder, do you think you've got the big parties on the run now?
I think they're terrified. Yeah. So they ought to be. I think you know, from the Conservative wing, there's a sense of betrayal of what happened from 2019 onwards. And as for the Labour Party, they're going to go further and faster. If you know what that means, please let me know. I haven't got a clue what any of it is. So yeah, they are both very, very... I mean, to think what happened in County Durham, but equally what happened in Staffordshire and Kent was quite extraordinary. Quite extraordinary. And let's face it, you know, Runcorn, I mean, the Labour Party had a majority of nearly 15,000. So it was a big day.
She's made a big breakthrough in local elections, right? No doubt about that. In numerical terms here at Westminster, you're still a limited number.
An impromptu press huddle there outside Westminster, just by St Stephen's entrance.
We are trying to listen in, but the audio is just a little bit too quiet, we think. But we'll
yeah, we'll see if we can get our camera operator to just shove some of those journalists in front very gently, and see if we can get a better shot there. But
you heard him talking about how the party, in his view, is representing millions of voters who don't agree with the establishment, he says, on various issues. So there he is with Sarah Potchin.
But, of course, much more after the break, and indeed that swearing in, that official swearing in that will take place inside the House of Commons in just under an hour's time.
OK, we're going to take a quick...
Hello, I'm here with your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Plenty of fine weather on offer as we go through the rest of today and, well, for the rest of this week, really, with high pressure firmly in control. That's going to keep our weather pretty settled. That being said, a little bit further away from the centre of the high towards the southeast of England, there will be a bit of a breeze today, and across some parts of eastern England, a bit more cloud, perhaps even a few showers developing too. Also, a little bit of showery rain affecting Orkney and Shetland, where it's also going to be quite cloudy. But otherwise, many places having a fine, dry day with a good deal of sunshine and with mostly light winds, feeling pretty warm in that sunshine too, with temperatures peaking mid, possibly high teens Celsius, highs of around 18 or 19 Celsius at best. Now, there won't be a huge amount of change as we go through into this evening, so Orkney and Shetland still quite cloudy here, and a few further bursts of rain are quite possible. Across the rest of Scotland, though, largely fine, good deal of sunshine as we go through the end of the day, just a bit of cloud here and there. A similar story across parts of Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales, albeit some of that cloud across eastern parts of England will have filtered a little bit further south and westwards as we go through the afternoon. So some central southern parts, a bit cloudy at times, but that cloud is going to really kind of break up as we go through later on. So that takes us into a dry night for most, 1 or 2 showers perhaps, but on the whole, a dry picture with a good deal of clear skies. As a result, even though it's going to be relatively warm by day, we are still going to have some fairly chilly nights. Could see a touch of frost in some prone rural spots, not quite as cold as it was last night, but nonetheless, a bit of frost could cause some problems for some gardeners out there. Then as we go through tomorrow, yes, a bit of a chilly start, but it's going to be another bright, fine day for many of us. A few showers coming through here and there. None of them look particularly heavy, and most of us will avoid them. With a good deal of sunshine and temperatures even a little bit higher compared to today, could get into the low 20s.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M4 is closed between junctions 22 Pilning and 23 Prince of Wales Bridge with diversions. Buckinghamshire's A404 northbound has a broken down vehicle near the M40 junction, causing a lane closure. A vehicle fire in Hampshire blocks all lanes on the M3 westbound exit slip at junction 6. The A30 westbound in Cornwall faces 10 minutes of congestion between the A3074 and the A394. The A737 westbound is narrow between St James Interchange and Linwood due to a collision, so proceed with caution. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. At 20 minutes to 2, are the Tories plotting once again to kick their leader out?
Well, after those poor election results saw Reform UK take key Conservative councils, a number of the party's MPs are allegedly planning to oust Kemi Badenoch as Conservative leader. Indeed, a number of them have been speaking anonymously to the papers, haven't they, to that effect?
Always anonymous, isn't it? Well, let's get the view of the grassroots now. Joining us is the Conservative councillor, Tom Jones. Tom, welcome to the programme and congratulations for being one of the few Conservative councillors to still have a seat in the United Kingdom. I know you weren't up for election this time, but Tom, where is the Conservative Party going? It looks like the share of the vote has been going backwards, not forwards.
Yeah, that's very true. I think Kemi, after the election, said that, you know, the problems that she faced during her leadership wouldn't be fixed in 6 months. I think that's That's obviously factually correct, but it's also factually correct to say that things have got worse under her watch so far. I think part of the problem that the party has faced is that Kemi has a set timetable, which is, I think, no cabinet changes for 5 years, no policy announcements for 2. The problem is that politics today is defined by speed. Thanks to Twitter, the kind of political time horizon is much, much shorter now. And I think this set of election results really has made it clear that this is the end of Plan A for Kemi.
OK, so what's Plan B then, Tom?
Well, I think Plan B is she's going to have to start putting out some policy very, very quickly. We can't afford another year of drift. The internal reckoning that we've been doing has, I think, essentially become a form of self-flagellation. And, I really like Kemi, but constantly apologising without offering anything new is associating her with the failure of the last 14 years. And I think we are at a point now where we simply just got to move on.
Wow, are you suggesting that there should be a new leader to have a new strategy, that Kemi Badenoch can't provide a new strategy in and of herself?
No, you're not catching me out that easily, Tom. You'll have to work a little bit harder. No, I think I don't think Kemi has to go. I think if she changes her plan, then absolutely she can stay the course. But if she stays the course with the plan and the timetable that she has, I think we are essentially on the verge of collapse.
Yeah, Tom, is that not the problem? Just very lastly, is that not the problem? The Conservatives are just irrelevant at the moment. All of the enthusiasm's going to the Reform Party. The grassroots, the Conservative grassroots, where are they? Are they really that supportive of Kemi? What's going on there? Reform is just the more exciting product at the moment.
Well, the real answer is, what grassroots? A lot of our donors, members, activists, they've already left. We're losing councillors left, right and centre. I think there has been less of a buzz around changing leader this time because, frankly, a lot of the people have already gone. If you're on the right of the Conservative Party, there is an alternative now that there hasn't been for a long, long, long time. It's an exciting product. They're taking control of councils. So I think a lot of the people who would be pushing for greater rapidity of change have probably already gone, if I'm being honest.
Wow. Well, Tom Jones, a bleak assessment there, but let's see what happens. Thanks indeed for joining us, Conservative councillor there in North Yorkshire.
Well, there you go. Let us know what you think of that. But our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, has managed to get a question to Reform leader Nigel Farage after that photo shoot. Let's take a listen.
Going to go further.
I know.
Fast.
I know.
Deliver change.
I know.
What do you make of that? What's your message to all the hundreds of MPs in there that think that you guys are just 5 and you could blow up at any minute?
Well, I would say when I heard the Prime Minister saying he was going to go further and faster, I had no idea what he was talking about, and I still haven't. And my message to all the MPs in there is enjoy it, because a lot of you won't be there in 4 years' time.
But you're going to have real power in these councils now. You've made pledges about net zero, about asylum seekers, but isn't a lot of that going to be out of your hands? Will you be able to deliver on this?
Well, look, there are going to be some fights for central government. I've no doubt about that. If they try and impose more of these young men that have crossed the channel, there's going to be an argument. I mean, how can Runcorn put up with any more than 750?
Sarah, can I ask?
It's true, isn't it? There is limited power when it comes to changing big issues at a council level, but we shall see. We shall see.
Something else we should see is the travel weather.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, if you're off to Greece in the next few days, it's good news. There's some hot sunshine on the way. Elsewhere, though, changeable with showers and particularly unsettled across Madeira on Wednesday with some stronger winds and longer spells of rain. Scattered showers also across parts of Iberia, but the heaviest thunderstorms across northern Italy and the Balkans on Wednesday, perhaps giving some flash flooding in places. Drier and sunnier across the south of Italy and across Greece, though, for the rest of this week, and it will feel warm in that sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hey headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
He's not just the first Brit, he's the first European, is that
Correct.
right, to win the Grand Slam?
To win the Grand Slam. See, the Grand Slam is something that's never really mentioned because it's so rare to win all 4 majors. Well, this is what I was going to head to. Can you get closer, get back until we can hang out with Rory for a while?
Rory would be our mate.
He would be great. I think he'd get on great with us.
I tell you what he is. He's the most ordinary guy. You meet him. I remember one night, he's good company.
Yeah.
And I always thought that there was a weakness with him, that he was too friendly with too many people.
Yeah.
I mean, people I'll not name, but I remember, people at the height of their career and they're watching games or they're watching... I remember once with the snooker tournament, walking up to a player and saying, incidentally, when this is over, could I... And he just said, shut your mouth.
You are kidding me.
He did. Yeah, he turned
is he alive or is he dead?
Oh, he's very famous. And he said to me, never... And he was wearing sunglasses and he took them off. He said, never, ever interrupt me when I'm watching snooker. And, but I learned something from that,
but come on.
I mean, it's rude, but you can
Even
kind of
so.
understand that some people need to kind of psychologically protect them. I don't know. And it must be frustrating sometimes when people interrupt you. But on the other hand,
But for
be
me,
a
Mary,
nice
there's
guy.
no except bad
No,
manners.
I know.
There's no excuse for bad manners.
No, that's right.
At least you go, look, sorry, but...
I'm just concentrating at the moment. Can you speak to me later or something like
please,
that?
will you shut up?
But you were saying yesterday, I mean, he's now one of the most famous, one of the most successful people from Northern Ireland. I think there was even a suggestion he should do an open-top bus tour.
Well, that was me yesterday.
Oh, was it you?
I think
Okay.
absolutely should, yeah.
Why?
Eamon...
Not today, it's raining.
Eamon will be driving the bus, and there'll be Rory there.
I have
as
a
well.
bus with my picture on it.
I know, yes, I know. That's what they want. They just have the Eamon bus, Rory on the top, nobody on waving.
GB News, the People's Channel. I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, good afternoon, Britain. It's 1:50. Any beautiful baldies out there listening or watching to the show? Because you're in luck today. Yes, there's one famous one, Prince William. A new poll says that bald men with a muscular physique are apparently more attractive to women than other men without those qualities.
Hang on, is the second half of these two things doing all the heavy lifting?
No, so here's the list.
Yeah.
Right. The most attractive features. Number 1, muscular physique, voted for by 42%.
OK.
Then bald, 40%. So it's only 2 points down. Then blue eyes is 38%. Now, not many people have blue eyes, so that's a rarity. A beard, 36%. Dark hair, 31%. Curly hair, 30%. High cheekbones, 26%. There you go, you've got high cheekbones, so you're looking good on that front.
I've also got slightly blue eyes, so I think I've got maybe 3 out of the current 7 or 8 that you've...
You've got the hairy chest, number 10.
I don't have the hairy chest.
Green eyes, 21%, blonde hair, 22%.
I'll let you guess which of the other of the list is... But no, is this a real thing? Where's this survey from? I find it hard to believe. I mean, look, there are lots of attractive people with hair, there are lots of attractive people without hair, but the defining quality...
This is another illicitencounters.com
Oh, there
poll.
we go.
Now, if you remember, you were watching this show a couple of weeks ago, it was illicitencounters.com who did the sexiest man polling, and Piers Morgan won.
Piers Morgan and Robert Jenrick, neither of whom have lost their hair. And yet now they're saying the sexiest men are the ones who have.
I think Illicit Encounters might want to be encouraging a certain type of clientele who they think may be looking for illicit encounters.
But of course, this website, it's all about people who want to commits the mortal sin of adultery.
Well, yes, exactly. So I'm thinking middle-aged men, perhaps, who may be more likely to have hairy chests and bald heads.
So perhaps...
I don't mean to be offensive,
This is polling a specific subset of the UK population.
Well, there's 2,000 women they polled, but we don't know which women.
OK, so it's not their members that they've polled.
No, they haven't polled the men.
Right. Well, no, I imagine women are members as well. I mean, otherwise, how do you have the encounter?
I'm thinking now, illicit encounters, perhaps we'll go to them for a right of reply on this, because I think that maybe they're diddling the books here.
Well, I don't know, because if they're given a list of things to tick, then perhaps that sort of skews the results.
I mean, there are many attractive men with bald heads, hairy chests, and whatever else there was here.
But maybe they're getting at that. I mean, it supposedly is the case that men who lose their hair have higher levels of testosterone, and that causes...
Oh, really?
That is allegedly what takes place there.
So you're less manly because you've got hair?
Well, perhaps.
Oh, dear.
And people who lose their hair earlier, they've just got more testosterone pumping around their systems.
So you're more of a real man if you've got a hairy chest and a bald head?
I'm just
all the hair
trying to
goes to your
interpret
chest.
these results, but perhaps. You know, it's...
Well, that was a bit of nonsense for you.
And nothing at all to do with certain producers on this channel who've been pushing this story for no reason that anyone could possibly interpret.
But let us know, do you think baldies are in at the moment? Why not?
Why not? Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more to come on today's programme, so don't move a muscle. Yes, as the government plans a visa crackdown on nationalities that are judged most likely to overstay their visas and claim asylum, new polling has suggested that more and more voters believe high levels of migration are driving down living standards.
And crucially, Labour voters, which is very interesting indeed. Is Keir Starmer going to take that on board and really launch the crackdown?
Yeah, might Labour voters actually start looking demographically like other voters for other parties, that this is all affecting everyone? Well, we'll get to that after the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. Here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Now, the weather through much of this week is going to continue in a similar vein to how it started, with lots of fine, dry and at times sunny weather on offer, because high pressure is going to continue to dominate our picture, leaving things pretty settled. Now, it has been sunny for many of us today, but not everywhere. There has been a swathe of cloud across some parts of eastern England, and that swathe of cloud is pushing its way southwestwards as we go through this evening and the start of the night, but it does then break up a little bit. And otherwise, yes, there will be a bit of cloud here and there, maybe even one or two showers, but generally it's looking dry with some clear skies. As a result, again, it's going to turn a bit chilly, perhaps not quite as cold as last night, but nonetheless, in some rural spots away from the towns and cities, a touch of frost is possible first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow, pretty bright start for most of us. Again, there will be a few showers here and there towards some North Sea coastal parts of East Anglia, a few showers perhaps, but generally it's largely dry, and there should be a good deal of sunshine. Not wall-to-wall blue skies necessarily, but a few sunny periods for most of us. A bit more sunshine perhaps on offer for large chunks of Scotland, but across the far north of mainland Scotland and also Orkney and Shetland, similar to today really, there's probably going to be a bit more cloud here, and again we could see some outbreaks of rain pushing through. Otherwise, and apart from a few showers here and there, none of them looking particularly heavy, and most of us will avoid these, it's going to be a mostly fine day. Plenty of sunshine on offer yet again, and with that sunshine and temperatures a little bit higher than today, there's a good chance it's going to feel pretty warm for most of us, could just about get into the low 20s Celsius. Little changes as we go through the evening tomorrow. Again, it's looking largely fine, and once more we're going to have a bit of a chilly night Wednesday night into Thursday. Looking through the rest of the week, and as I mentioned, high pressures sticking around, so lots of fine sunny weather to come, and our temperatures are going to be creeping up as well. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
UK could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Tuesday, the 6th of May. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver, and I'm enjoying all the comments that are coming in on this sexy feature list. Anyway.
Some of these were inside thoughts that perhaps people shouldn't have posted on the internet.
It's so funny. Well, as the government plans a visa crackdown on nationalities that are judged most likely to overstay their visas and claim asylum, new polling that's just landed suggests more and more voters, including Labour voters, believe high levels of migration are driving down living standards.
And the full extent of Britain's grooming gang scandal has been comprehensively recorded for the first time, exposing key elements behind the nationwide crisis. Stay tuned for more details.
And as tensions soar and contingency plans are renewed, Sir Keir Starmer reportedly plans to ramp up UK defences. But will we be ready if Putin strikes?
And the Reform Party's new rule would strip councils of quote-unquote woke flags, leaving only the Union flag and St George's Cross flying high. Is this national pride or a political stunt?
Do you reckon that's just a political stunt, or do you think it's a good move? I think people will back it on the whole.
I think people will back it. I don't think it's the biggest thing affecting people's lives today, but I think people generally do like to see our country's flag fly. I mean, the Scottish government proudly fly the saltire every chance they can get, and similarly in Wales, that national pride is shown across the Principality, or the country, depending on your view. And also, well, why not England? Why not?
That's a bit cheeky, isn't it? From Tom. But yeah, I mean, in Melton Mowbray yesterday in Leicestershire, flags everywhere. Bunting everywhere. Every shop window there were flags. Yeah, which was nice to see. Lots of people remarking upon it.
It is nice. I mean, especially when you walk... I think it was under the Boris Johnson government that there was this renewed impetus from government buildings to put the Union Jack or the Union flag, depending on your point of view, to fly that high and proud. It's just nice to see. It makes you feel a bit better about your community. But if there's lots of British flags flying and the bins aren't collected... and there's muck all over the streets and your services are creaking and your tax is high, that's not going to fix much at all. So, yes, nice to have, but let's not get distracted by the triviality.
I mean, I was in a village in the English countryside in the south, and we came past this quintessentially English church, and they only had the Ukrainian flag flying. And I thought, OK, you know, make a stance on Ukraine, fine, but why not have the Union flag as well?
Yeah,
you know, it's a bit odd, or the St George's Cross. I don't know.
It's strange when it's only the Ukrainian flag, although, I mean, it is quite nice to see that sort of solidarity sometimes.
I like seeing the Union flag everywhere. Drape me in it.
Yeah, no, very nice, very nice. There has been a furore, however, amongst many people saying, will this policy include or exclude county flags?
That was a faux controversy,
you know it was. The White Horse of Kent, the Rose of Yorkshire, are these going to be banned from these buildings?
They absolutely will not be. Anyway, gbnews.com/your say. Would you like to see more of the flag hanging outside your council building, or do you think this is a minor issue that perhaps is just being talked about for headlines? Let us know, gbnews.com/your say. But it is the headlines now.
Good afternoon, it's 3 minutes past 2. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. Downing Street has ruled out a U-turn on means testing the winter fuel payment this lunchtime. That comes after reports that the government was reportedly rethinking its cut to the winter fuel allowance. Number 10 was reportedly considering whether to increase the £11,500 threshold, over which pensioners are no longer eligible for the allowance. However, the Prime Minister's official spokesman said that the policy is set out. There will not be a change to the government's policy, adding that the decision was taken to repair public finances inherited from the last government. While sticking with welfare, Welsh First Minister Baroness Eluned Morgan has criticised Sir Keir Starmer's welfare reforms in a major speech today, calling for a rethink in the decision to means test the winter fuel allowance. More than 1,000 GP surgeries across the country will undergo refurbishments to modernise, as the government announces the biggest public investment in GP facilities for 5 years. According to the Department for Health and Social Care, the £102 million investment will help to deliver 8.3 million new appointments this year, as they provide additional space for doctors to see more patients. Research by the Institute for Government shows that around 80% of patients saw a GP in person in 2019, compared to 66% last year. Police have launched an investigation after 2 superbike riders died in a chain reaction collision during a championship race. 21-year-old Owen Jenner and 29-year-old Shane Richardson were both treated trackside but later died after the race at Alton Park in Cheshire yesterday. 11 riders fell on the first corner of the Quattro Group British Supersport Championship, and a third rider, 47-year-old Tom Tunstall, sustained significant injuries. The competition was stopped immediately and medical services were deployed. Briefly to Germany, where there'll be a second round of voting in the election for a chancellor later today, after Conservative leader Friedrich Merz failed to reach the parliamentary majority needed to become chancellor this morning in the first round of voting. That was an unexpected setback for his new coalition with the centre-left Social Democrats. The lower house of Parliament now has 14 days to elect Merz or another candidate chancellor with an outright majority. Reports suggesting that second vote will be at 3 p.m. local time. Kemi Badenoch has said that she is confident that she will still be Conservative leader at the next general election. Speaking on a visit to a school in Putney, the leader of the opposition said that she wants to focus on delivering for the public and that she understands why they do not trust the Conservatives.
We do need to change as quickly as possible. We have some time, but we don't have much time. But that is what I'm doing. I am changing the Conservative Party to be one that is tougher on immigration. We've come out with new policies, reducing the fast track for British citizenship, for example. But we also need to make sure that we don't just make announcements without a plan. 4 years ago, Keir Starmer had an even worse election. He got worse results last week. He is the Prime Minister now. So we need to use local elections to hear the message the public are giving us, but continue to work hard at the job, and that is what I'm doing today.
An installation of ceramic poppies has returned to the Tower of London today as events to mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day continue. Nearly 30,000 of the original poppies from the 2014 display at the Tower, which commemorated the centenary of the First World War, are displayed in a new installation within the walls of the fortress. The Tower itself was bombed during the Blitz and still bears some of those scars today. The installation comes following the start of VE Day commemorations yesterday, with a procession from Whitehall to Buckingham Palace, which was attended by senior members of the royal family and politicians. And today marks the 2-year anniversary of the coronation of Their Majesties King Charles and Queen Camilla. The King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery fired a 41-gun royal salute in Hyde Park, and the Honourable Artillery Company fired a 62-gun salute from Tower Wharf to mark the occasion. 2 commissioned coronation state portraits have been unveiled by Their Majesties in the Central Hall at the National Gallery. The portraits, which will form part of the royal collection, were painted by 2 different artists personally selected by the King and Queen. His Majesty chose to be painted by Peter Kufeld, and Queen Camilla selected Paul S. Benny. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More from me in half an hour.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 2 now. As the government plans a visa crackdown on nationalities that are judged more likely to overstay their visas and claim asylum, new polling suggests that more and more voters believe high levels of migration are driving down living standards for everyone else.
Yes, and this is quite interesting, actually, because the figures are most interesting for Labour voters, with fewer than 1 in 4 now claiming they feel the economic benefits of immigration. Now, Labour have traditionally been pretty open when it comes to immigration, although the Conservatives followed suit, didn't they? But that is very interesting, very striking.
Well, let's discuss this all with the former Minister of State for Migration, Tom Pursglove. Tom, thanks for being in the studio with us. Let's start with this polling that we're just seeing now. That Labour Party voters, traditionally a bit more open towards migration, they're now saying they're not feeling any benefit from it.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. And one of the big pressures that undoubtedly exists that's attached to having such high levels of migration, both legal and illegal, is around our infrastructure. And I'm not convinced, for example, that the OBR, when it evaluates the impact on migration on our economy, ever has truly got to the bottom of the enormous infrastructure challenges that this brings when it comes to people being able to get school places for their kids, being able to get in to see a GP, all of the housing pressures that this presents. And so I'm not surprised that voters of all parties have got real concerns about this, and particularly in working class areas where traditionally Labour will have been very strong.
Yeah, we have, pro-immigration voices coming onto this channel, and they insist that there is an economic benefit for the amount of immigration that we've had. But it doesn't look like the people are believing that. I mean, let's just break this down. So in terms of Labour voters, when asked, to what extent, if any, do you think higher levels of immigration have had a positive or negative impact on your living standards, 40% of Labour voters say negative, somewhat or very. 33% say neither positive nor negative. Only 24% now say positive. That's Labour voters. That's people who voted for Keir Starmer.
And that's because confidence has been shredded in our borders and migration system. People don't believe that there is proper control. I think the steps that I took in government with James Cleverly that were bringing the numbers down quite markedly month on month were the right thing to do. But in order to win public confidence back on this, they're going to have to go further. So the sort of announcements that we've heard today are really tweaking at the edges. We need to see the detail of the proposed legislation that Labour are talking about. But it won't fundamentally bring the numbers down to anywhere near the level that I think voters would find palatable. But also, it's the optics of seeing those small boat crossings as well that are so visual that I think makes such a stark impression on people and their perception.
But this is interesting. On the announcement today, this problem that we've all known about for a long, long time. The vast bulk of illegal migration to this country is people coming in legally, flying in with a study visa or with a holiday visa and simply staying. Many more people than travel across by small boats. But you're arguing that because it's less visible, perhaps that'll have less of an impact on people feeling that the problem is being solved.
I think people see both. I think it's at a stage now where people have a very low tolerance for everything that's going on. I really worry, actually, about the consent that we're losing for legal migration because of the fact that the numbers are out of control. Clearly, there are people who come to the UK who bring enormous benefits to our public services, to our businesses, in a whole host of aspects of our day-to-day lives. But it has to be proportionate, and that's why they've got to take tough decisions to continue to bring these numbers down, get a proper grip on illegal migration, get these hotels closed. They've reverse ferreted on a lot of the steps that we were taking forward in government. Just tweaking around at the edges isn't going to be enough. You've got to fundamentally commit to a plan that brings numbers of legal migrants coming to this country down very dramatically. And then on the return side, where you do see abuse, you've got to have a strong stance on this, return people to those countries. And I would argue that, for example, I legislated for visa penalties, and we should take the firm, robust stance that if countries do not accept their returns when the UK government asks them to do so, we shouldn't provide more visas to those countries.
Yeah, I mean, there's a remarkable stat that we read out earlier. 40,000 people who've come on holiday visas or visitor visas or study visas have then claimed asylum in just 1 year, just last year. 40,000 people. Quite incredible. Tom Persclove, thank you very much indeed. Minister of State, former Minister of State for Legal Migration and the Borders.
Well, despite speculation that the government was planning a U-turn on its cuts to winter fuel payments for pensioners, the Prime Minister's official spokesman this afternoon claimed that there will be no changes to the winter fuel payment policy.
Well, that's despite an admission from ministers that anger over the cut played a role in Labour's poor performance in the local elections last week.
Here's what the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, had to say a little earlier on GB News.
What I do want to reassure your viewers are, though, that look, we did notice the results last Thursday. I think voters have sent us a very loud and clear message that unless we deliver the change they voted for last year, they will look for change elsewhere. And all I want to just reassure people about is that, particularly if you take the top three issues voters consistently tell us at the top of their agenda, the cost of living, the NHS, border security, we are taking action on every single one of those fronts.
OK, well, for more on this, let's talk to the director of the IFS, Paul Johnson. Paul, thank you very much. I mean, of course, there's a lot of upset backbenchers in the Labour Party who really desperately want the government, the Labour government, to decide to U-turn on this. Of course, a lot of pensioners out there and others who are absolutely furious about this too. What do you make of the decision of the government to hold tight on this one, to refuse to U-turn?
I'm not terribly surprised. It's always difficult, isn't it, to U-turn on a policy that you've committed to. The speculation was that they might increase at the moment it's still available, this winter fuel allowance to pensioners on the lowest incomes, and there was speculation that that would be made available to pensioners on slightly higher incomes. The problem is, of course, that it won't necessarily look desperately different. There'll still be a group of people losing who are always much more vociferous than those who would have done a bit better. I mean, the odd thing here is that there's not an enormous amount of money involved in the context of what we spend on pensions, let alone what we spend overall as a country. So any change wouldn't have cost the government a great deal, except, I think, in credibility.
And Paul, isn't this one of the big conundrums that the Chancellor has? That we've seen Prime Ministers in recent history lose the confidence of international markets, lose the sense that they're in control of their own policy agenda. And that's sent the cost of our debt spiralling. That's caused real problems for the Treasury and indeed for Prime Ministers past. If the Chancellor is seen to bend to political pressure on reversing one of the cuts that she's made, does that make this country seem less stable and perhaps less trustworthy for international investment?
Well, you're right that attracting international investment, the cost of our debt is a big issue. We're spending more than £100 billion every single year just on debt interest. That's more than we spend on any public service other than the NHS. So this is a huge amount of money, and that's why one of the reasons why we pay much higher rates of interest on our debt than Germany, for example, despite the problems that German economy is having. So that's one reason why the Chancellor has been so clear that her fiscal rules are, quote, ironclad. And I think that's also one of the reasons why she will not want to seem to be being pushed around. Now, the amount of impact that, as I say, something which is a really very small amount of money in the context of all this, the impact that a half U-turn or a U-turn on that by itself would have, I think is quite limited. But I don't think the government wants that to then, what's the next thing it gets pressure on, and what's the next thing after that? So if you don't hold to this, then maybe it's the two-child limit, maybe it's the national insurance contributions, maybe it's the inheritance tax changes. There's always the next thing, isn't there?
Yeah, Paul Johnson, thank you very much indeed, Director of the IFS. Appreciate your time. I think it's a case of priorities for a lot of people. They see, billions going on Ed Miliband's GB Energy project. They see billions going abroad for foreign aid and other projects, and they think, well, what about our pensioners? It has been cut. It has been cut, yes. But sense of priorities being skewed.
Well, let's move on now to a priority for us, indeed a GB News exclusive. The full extent of Britain's grooming gang scandal has now been uncovered. Yes, our reporter Charlie Peters is here in the studio to tell us more. Charlie.
Well, Emily and Tom, here's the question dominating so many communities across the country. What are they not telling us about grooming gangs? Well, in January, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said that there would be a 3-month rapid audit being led by Baroness Louise Casey, looking at the extent of the crisis. That's late. Home Office sources tell us it'll come at some point this month, but there's been no indication of what it might reveal. But in the same time, GB News has generated its own dossier, and the best way we can demonstrate the data we've gathered is through a map. Now, this nationwide analysis shows over 50 different towns and cities where this sort of abuse has been recorded, either through court cases, government reviews, or survivor testimony delivered directly to GB News. You can see that we've also got suspected gang activity in some areas where we believe there are some investigations to come, where survivors have spoken about their horrifying ordeals. And this stretches all the way up from Plymouth to Carlisle in particular, that band of particular concern. Moving now into the north of the country, because this is where there has been so much focus on this crisis. You can see there is a severe intensity for so much of this scandal. In particular, Bradford and the Bradford district, Kirklees, Huddersfield and West Yorkshire in general. It's one of the areas where there's been no independent review, and it's still being resisted by the authority there, but where the police have had so many convictions. And moving on, we can show you that available on the GB News website, you can click on all these areas and see how many convictions there have been in each town. For example, in Rotherham, we have 65 convictions. That's from 1997 to the present day for over 1,510 victims. In fact, more people have been prosecuted for rioting last August on one day alone in Rotherham than have ever been successfully convicted for this abuse over several decades. We'll move on now to the networking analysis. Now, for the first time ever, GB News can reveal the extent of the trafficking that went on in this form of abuse and is still ongoing. Now, of course, the North is focused on regularly, but I want to draw your attention to Oxfordshire and the south of England, and a city that's very rarely mentioned in this abuse scandal discussion, but must get central focus, and that's London. We can see trafficking from the Carrar brothers, who were both jailed last decade, were taking victims to Paddington Station. There are also survivors taken from Rotherham in the north down to London as well. And if we move on, we can focus back up north, actually, showing you the intensity that we have here of how those organised criminal gang networks, often dealing drugs at the same time as they were dealing in children. Some of the most appalling abuse this country has ever witnessed. Now, many of these networks that you're seeing here have never been assessed by government reports, in particular in Bradford, where there is so much political focus now. Only Greater Manchester and Rotherham have had reviews, and what's on your screen now. But many of these trafficking routes are being displayed by GB News today for the first time. Tom and Ellie, this is a truly national scandal. We've got over 500 convictions recorded on this dossier, which we worked on with some grassroots researchers from Crime Spotlight UK. 0 deportations since 2011 and millions in legal aid spent since that time to keep perpetrators resisting deportation out of the country. Much more investigation to come.
Thank you very much, Charlie, for bringing us that. It's extraordinary to see the web of those trafficking routes across our country.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've got some news to bring you, however. We can reveal that in the last half an hour it's been announced the UK has struck a landmark multi-billion-pound trade deal with India.
Yeah, so these negotiations have been going on for about 1, 2, 3 years.
Under Boris Johnson, they started.
There's been toing and froing on all sorts. A lot of talk about various visa deals as well, but it does look like we're going to be sending... Well, we're going to be exporting some of our goods for much cheaper price.
Well, absolutely. Those tariffs have been slashed on goods like whiskey, cosmetics and medical devices. That's reductions on 90% of the tariff lines for UK exports to India. A big boost for UK businesses, which the government says will provide £5 billion extra to this country and £2.2 billion in higher wages as well.
Yes. Well, apparently the deal will boost trade by an additional $25.5 billion a year by 2040. That's the forecast that the government's put out. Currently, it's about £41 billion a year of trade between our two countries. One of the sticking points was that visa issue, because we've had a huge amount of visas given to Indian people to come to this country, and I believe the Indian administration wanted more. As yet, we don't know. I don't believe they've told us yet.
Well, we're expecting that 85% of goods that are exported to India from the UK will become completely tariff-free within a decade. And that's going to include many different things like whiskey, medical devices, but also automotive tariffs. So that's tariffs on cars. Whilst they've been raised by the United States, they're going to be dropping to India. So some really, really big reductions in tariffs there. And that, as Emily says, it will add... Well, it'll increase trade, we're expecting, by £25.5 billion. That adds UK GDP about £5 billion and wages £2.2 billion.
But that's the positives. We'll have to see if there's any compromises that have been made. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, Reform UK's new rule would strip councils of flying flags other than the Union flag and the St George's Cross. Is this national pride or a political stunt?
And after the break, as tensions soar and contingency plans are renewed, Sir Keir Starmer reportedly plans to ramp up UK defences, but will we be ready if Putin does strike?
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast every day from 6 a.m.
Do you know that Gladiators is the TV show most likely to get you thinking about moving, about exercising.
Well, who better to talk to us about than gladiator and Olympian Montel Douglas? Good to see you this morning, Montel.
What way does gladiators work in getting people to move?
I think Gladiators spans all generations, which is one of the things that I love the most. You know, we have everyone from 2-year-olds doing our moves and feeling like superhuman, all the way up to, 90s, 100, people saying that they're really inspired to start moving, to start thinking differently about their health in a range of different things, but also just to think that, why can't I do it? And everyone's got a story, everyone's journey, their strength journey is very, very different. Mine's been very different, like I said, from summer to winter into Gladiators. Even that was a massive shift. So I think it's just inspiring people to think that they can do it.
Montel, what if I just hit upon that area about can't do? I'm in a position where I can't do a lot of things now. I regard watching Country File on a Sunday night as huge exercise for me. What if you just believe you can't do anything?
I'm really sad that you said that, Eamon. You can do whatever you're... The thing is, as well, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're usually right. And I always say, try. I think many of us, the first time I climbed up of a wall doing Gladiators, I'm petrified of heights, and people know that. And you will never know that now because I went on there and, I got frightened, I was brave, and then kept on doing it. And I think the hardest thing is to start. And what I hope is that, we're inspiring people to start something that they never thought, because you don't know until you try. And then also, it doesn't matter what it is. As long as you just make that first move, you can get better. And then you'll feel braver when you do it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Breaking news for you. In the last half hour, it's been announced that the UK has struck a landmark, multi-billion-pound trade deal with India.
Well, here's what the Prime Minister had to say.
Well, this is a historic day for the United Kingdom and for India, because this is the biggest trade deal that we, the UK, have done since we left the EU, and it's the most ambitious trade deal that India has ever done. And this will be measured in billions of pounds into our economy and jobs across the whole of the United Kingdom. So it is a really important, significant day. And look, it's been promised many times over the last 8 years. Prime Minister Modi and I decided in Brazil last year that we would move at pace in relation to these negotiations. We've done that in a serious way, in a pragmatic way, and we're able to show that that's what delivers results. So I'm really pleased for working people across the country who will feel the benefits of this, of course, at an increasingly uncertain time in terms of trade and the economy across the world. So this is a very significant step, and I'm very pleased that we've got this far with this really significant trade agreement.
There's always give and take in these things. Where did you land on the number of visas that you're going to grant to Indian nationals? Will it affect net migration?
Look, there were tough negotiations on both sides, as you would expect, but because we were serious and pragmatic and providing the leadership to our negotiating teams, we were able to resolve the difficulties that have held this up for the best part of 8 years. And my sort of approach to the negotiations, my instructions to the team was, we will always act in our national interest and make sure that this is a deal that works for Britain. And that's what we've been able to produce, that's what we're able to deliver today.
Will India have to pay the same sort of carbon taxes on products like cement and steel that other countries have to pay to import into this country?
Well, we have negotiated the best set of arrangements, but I've been absolutely mindful of the key sectors that we have in this country and how we improve the economic circumstances for them. We have brilliance across the United Kingdom, which will now be showcased and drive our economy in what we can now do with India. So we've negotiated hard on both sides, but I think looking at the outcome here, what you will see is that these are two countries that have come together historically today, and what we've been able to show is that, you know, those British values of seriousness, pragmatic approaches have delivered the results for working people across the country.
And finally, Prime Minister, what do you say to all those MPs and the First Minister of Wales who are worried about the direction of the government, and in particular who want you to rethink your winter fuel payment policy? Are you thinking about that again?
Well, we had a cabinet meeting on this discussion on this issue this morning. I was really clear that most prime ministers, after a disappointing set of results like that, would get in the warm bath of saying, well, it's the electoral cycle, it was close. I'm not going to do that. I think it's really important that we indicate to voters that we get it. I think we need to explain the decisions that we've taken. And, you know, we had to stop the chaos. We had to stabilise our economy. And that's what we've done. What we now need to do, I think the message is the change people voted for, the change we're delivering is important. We've got to turbocharge that now off the back of the decisions we've made, but turbocharge the change so people can feel it in their everyday lives, and that's what we're determined to do.
Thank you very much.
Tom, Keir Starmer was asked directly there by that reporter how many visas are included in this deal. He did not answer the question at all. He just went on and said, we always act in Britain's interest. That's not answering the question there.
And yet it
Crucial.
It does seem that there are visas included in this deal.
Of course there are.
Because there are clear and agreed routes, in quotes. That's happening with regard to business people and other professionals, and a cap will be applied to some group of workers, including chefs and musicians. So if a cap needs to be applied to the chefs and musicians who will come over, surely that implies that there will be a number of chefs and musicians who are given visas as part of this deal.
Why didn't he just say that? If that's the deal, and that's the best deal, and that's in the interests of the British people, why not just say it? Or did he not know the detail? I think he knew. I think he knew. Anyway, let us know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up.
Indeed, Reform UK's new rule would strip councils of quote-unquote woke flags, leaving only the Union flag and St George's Cross flying high. Is this national pride or all just a political stunt? That after your latest news headlines.
Tom, Emily, thank you. More on that breaking news of the UK's new trade deal with India to come. But to the top stories elsewhere today, Downing Street has ruled out a U-turn on means testing the winter fuel payment this lunchtime. That comes after reports that the government was reportedly rethinking its cut to the winter fuel allowance. Number 10 was reportedly considering whether to increase the £11,500 threshold, over which pensioners are no longer eligible for the allowance. However, the Prime Minister's official spokesman said that the policy is set out. There will not be a change to the government's policy, adding that the decision was taken to repair public finances inherited from the last government. Well, sticking with welfare, Welsh First Minister Baroness Eluned Morgan has criticised Sir Keir Starmer's welfare reforms in a major speech today, calling for a rethink in the decision to means test the winter fuel allowance. Briefly to Germany, where a second round of voting in the election for Chancellor is underway after Conservative leader Friedrich Merz failed to reach the parliamentary majority needed to become Chancellor this morning in the first round of voting. That was an unexpected setback for his new coalition with the centre-left Social Democrats. The lower house of Parliament now has 14 days to elect Merz or another candidate Chancellor with an outright majority, and that vote is now taking place. We'll bring you more from Germany shortly. Police have launched an investigation after two superbike riders died in a chain reaction collision during a championship race. 21-year-old Owen Jenner and 29-year-old Shane Richardson were both treated trackside, but later died after the race at Alton Park in Cheshire yesterday. 11 riders fell at the first corner of the Quattro Group British Supersport Championship, and a third rider, 47-year-old Tom Tunstall, sustained significant injuries. The competition was stopped immediately and medical services were deployed. Today marks the 2-year anniversary of the coronation of Their Majesties King Charles and Queen Camilla. The King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery fired a 41-gun Royal Salute in Hyde Park, and the Honourable Artillery Company fired a 62-gun Royal Salute from Tower Wharf to mark the occasion. 2 commissioned coronation state portraits have been unveiled by Their Majesties in the Central Hall at the National Gallery. The portraits, which will form part of the royal collection, were painted by 2 different artists personally selected by the King and Queen. His Majesty chose to be painted by Peter Kufeld, and Queen Camilla selected Paul S. Benny. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Tatiana Sanchez will have more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's market. The pound will buy you $1.3387 and €1.1815. The price of gold is £2,537.53 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,601 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello, I'm here with your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Plenty of fine weather on offer as we go through the rest of today and, well, for the rest of this week, really, with high pressure firmly in control. That's going to keep our weather pretty settled. That being said, a little bit further away from the centre of the high towards the southeast of England, there will be a bit of a breeze today, and across some parts of eastern England, a bit more cloud, perhaps even a few showers developing too. Also, a little bit of showery rain affecting Orkney and Shetland, where it's also going to be quite cloudy. But otherwise, many places having a fine, dry day with a good deal of sunshine and with mostly light winds, feeling pretty warm in that sunshine too, with temperatures peaking mid, possibly high teens Celsius, highs of around 18 or 19 Celsius at best. Now, there won't be a huge amount of change as we go through into this evening, so Orkney and Shetland still quite cloudy here, and a few further bursts of rain are quite possible. Across the rest of Scotland, though, largely fine, good deal of sunshine as we go through the end of the day, just a bit of cloud here and there. A similar story across parts of Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales, albeit some of that cloud across eastern parts of England will have filtered a little bit further south and westwards as we go through the afternoon. So some central southern parts, a bit cloudy at times, but that cloud is going to really kind of break up as we go through later on. So that takes us into a dry night for most, 1 or 2 showers perhaps, but on the whole, a dry picture with a good deal of clear skies. As a result, even though it's going to be relatively warm by day, we are still going to have some fairly chilly nights. Could see a touch of frost in some prone rural spots, not quite as cold as it was last night, but nonetheless, a bit of frost could cause some problems for some gardeners out there. Then as we go through tomorrow, yes, a bit of a chilly start, but it's going to be another bright, fine day for many of us. A few showers coming through here and there. None of them look particularly heavy, and most of us will avoid them, with a good deal of sunshine, and temperatures even a little bit higher compared to today could get into the low 20s.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Motorists using the M8 northbound on-slip at Junction 5, Auchenkilns, face closures due to a significant incident. Commuters should find alternative routes. The Prince of Wales Bridge on the M4 between Junction 22 Pilning and Junction 23 Rogier is closed to all traffic, with diversions in place. In Northamptonshire, the M1 northbound between Junction 16 and Junction 18 is experiencing lengthy delays due to a collision, resulting in all lanes being closed. Traffic should return to normal by 6:10 this evening. Drivers should stay informed of updates. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 39 minutes past 2. Now, in the last couple of minutes, the Reform UK new MP, Sarah Pochin, was sworn in the House of Commons.
I swear by Almighty God
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Well, there you go, the swearing-in process. Yes, the first female addition to the roster of Reform UK MPs. I am always reminded of Clive Lewis. Remember when he refused to read the right words or say the right words, and he had to do it again?
You had to do it again because you're not an MP unless you can affirm. You don't have to swear by Almighty God. You can affirm as well if you're of a less religious bent. Sometimes the Scottish nationalists like to cross their fingers as they swear an oath to the King, but you do have to swear an oath to become an MP, which is why the Irish nationalists, or at least the Sinn Féin variety of them, don't swear that oath, don't take their seats, and therefore that adjusts the majority, the threshold needed for majority each election.
And the second time he did it, I think he got away with saying something like, I wish it weren't the case, or something. Until it changes, I will say this, or whatever. Anyway, let's go to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, for some reaction, not to Clive Lewis's swearing in, but to Sarah Poachin's there. Yes, so first female MP for Reform UK. It is now the 5th, would have been 6th if it weren't for Rupert Lowe and everything that happened there. Tell us more, Catherine.
Yes, quite a moment for Reform, I think, because it has looked at times, looking at the pictures of the 5 of them as was, well, before Rupert Lowe was exiled, as a bit of a boys' club. So she certainly, along with Andrea Jenkins, who's now become the Mayor of Lincolnshire, counter to that, which I think will be very welcome. Look, there was a media scrum outside Parliament about an hour ago where the Reform MPs came along with Sarah Poachin. They talked to the press. I asked Nigel Farage what his message was to all the MPs inside, and he said, well, enjoy it, because there's not going to be many of you next time around, because we're going to have hundreds of MPs. And also, I was up in Runcorn and Helsby on Thursday night and Friday morning when Sarah Poachin won that seat by just 6 votes. I interviewed her then. Let's have a little look at what she had to say.
People are so fed up with the 2 main parties. They're not the 2 main parties anymore. Reform is one of the main parties, and this movement of energy is going to carry on across the country. What we've done here in Runcorn and Helsby is made history tonight, overturning that a massive Labour majority, and I think it's a sign that people are fed up with both parties. They feel let down by the Tories, let down by Labour, and the Labour have only been in for 10 months, but they're ready for change, and we are going to provide that party of hope.
Immigration has been one of the big issues here, hasn't it? Can you tell us a bit about that and what else people have been talking about on the doorstep?
Immigration is massive here. Runcorn feels like a dumping ground for illegal immigrants. We've had the Daresbury Hotel, we've got houses of multiple occupancy, so it's a big issue, and people feel unsafe on streets in certain parts of the constituency because of that. So that's definitely something, as you know, very much part of our agenda to tackle that problem.
Well, she said there that Reform are now one of the main parties. Well, not in Parliament. They've only got 5 MPs, but more broadly, they did unbelievably well, didn't they? And they now, we know, took a lot of seats from the Conservatives at the last election, but they just overturned a 15,000 majority in Runcorn and Helsby. That was Labour's 49th safest seat. They then took hundreds of council seats across the country. So it does feel like they've absolutely got the momentum. And in the lobby briefing, I was really struck by the fact that the Prime Minister's press secretary came along to talk to journalists and wanted to make it known that the government were very busy doing all sorts of things to bring about that change. He took a pop at Reform too, said, you know, we're not worried, we're not busy faffing around with flags after the announcement yesterday, of course, that Reform councils would say you can only fly a British flag there. So it does feel like a moment, and I have to say, obviously, the Tories have been worried about reform for a very long time, but absolutely Labour are very, very worried because they can see the direction of the travel and they know they've got to make people feel better off. No sign of that at the moment.
Thank you very much, Catherine Forster, our political correspondent there. Thank you very much. After the break, I believe we're going to be digging into some of the detail of this trade deal that's just been announced by the government. It does look like there have been some compromises made.
Yes, indeed. Visa deal, part of this deal, more visas to be granted, but also something called the Double Contribution Convention, a mechanism to try and avoid double taxation in both countries. But it looks like for the first 3 years, migrants from India to the United Kingdom won't have to pay national insurance contributions. So we'll get to the bottom of that one for you. That to come, of course, after this break. But before we go to the break, perhaps all of this talk of Indian trade has made you think of hot Indian summers. Well, we won't give you the weather for India, but what we will do is perhaps something a little closer to home. Here's the European weather.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, if you're off to Greece in the next few days, it's good news. There's some hot sunshine on the way. Elsewhere, though, changeable with showers and particularly unsettled across Madeira on Wednesday with some stronger winds and longer spells of rain. Scattered showers also across parts of Iberia, but the heaviest thunderstorms across northern Italy and the Balkans on Wednesday, perhaps giving some flash flooding in places. Drier and sunnier across the south of Italy and across Greece, though, for the rest of this week, and it will feel warm in that sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. At 10 to 3, let's dive into more about this multi-billion-pound trade deal agreed with India.
Yes, well, we have international trade expert David Hainig on the line. David, thank you so much for joining us so quickly after this announcement. Our viewers want to know, have we made some big compromises here? Is this as mutually beneficial as the Prime Minister may say?
As far as I can tell from a first look, what's actually happened is that we've dropped some of the UK demands in return for resisting some of the Indian demands. So it doesn't look like there's lots more visas coming. It doesn't look like there was talk of a social security agreement. There was talk of Indian exemptions and other things. It looks to me as though both sides have agreed to go with a sort of a lower ambition deal so that the UK didn't have to sign up for Indian demands. So as far as we can tell, devil in the details often with these things.
So interestingly, there are a lot of items that within 10 years are going to be zero rated for tariffs to India, but then there are lots of big exports for the UK, like cars, for example, that will have lower tariffs, but still tariffs in perpetuity.
And this is the difficulty with doing business with India. They don't have generous trade deals in general. Yeah, it's a difficult place for UK companies to do business. There are lots of restrictions on UK exports to India. So you'll see some tariff reduction, some tariff elimination, but there will still be these barriers in place. And that's why, in terms of the overall economic value, it's quite modest for the world's, one of the world's largest economies. 4.5 billion a year is the number given. That's not a huge amount. And I think the hope on the UK government is that this can be the first step and you can build on it later. I'm not sure, from what I know of the Indian government, that any more would have been available now or in the next year.
Very quickly, David, there is this contention growing online over the taxation agreement within this, avoiding double taxation. Many people are saying that, well, this deal seems to include a sort of amnesty on paying national insurance for Indian migrants within their first 3 years of living in the UK.
Well, there's a long-standing issue. I mean, there's been a double taxation agreement between the UK and India in existence for some time. I haven't seen that detail on social security, but it's a long-standing issue that the way the social security systems work is very different. The UK system, obviously, you pay and get some, and it's all towards benefits long down the line. In the Indian system is very different. You pay in, and then you can withdraw what you pay in at a certain point. It's, yes, there's bound to have been some compromises. I haven't seen the exact detail.
Yes, because if it turns out that there are tax benefits for hiring Indian workers as opposed to British workers, then that, of course, will be hugely controversial. David Hainig, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm really sorry. International trade expert there. He'll be digging into the detail as we speak, I imagine.
Absolutely, and much more of that detail's coming up with Martin Daubney. Who's next?
Hi guys, caught red-handed, an exclusive, astonishing video from Mark White of French Coast Guards simply handing over life jackets in the middle of the channel to illegal immigrants. Who's paying for this? How can we stop this? I'll be joined in the studio by Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, and Lee Anderson from Reform. We'll also ask him about their woke flag ban. Plus, Mark Carney steps into the lion's den of the White House. Will it be a car crash like that epic clash between Zelensky and Donald Trump? We'll be there live as it happens. But it's all eyes on Reform. Lee Anderson on his first appearance since those election wipeouts. Also ask him about Sarah Pochin, the latest addition to the Reform camp. By the way, she joins me exclusively at 7 p.m. tonight on GB News. All of that to come and much, much more. But first, here is your weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again.
Here's your latest GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Now, the weather through much of this week is going to continue in a similar vein to how it started, with lots of fine, dry and at times sunny weather on offer, because high pressure is going to continue to dominate our picture, leaving things pretty settled. Now, it has been sunny for many of us today, but not everywhere. There has been a swathe of cloud across some parts of eastern England, and that swathe of cloud is pushing its way southwestwards as we go through this evening and the start of the night, but it does then break up a little bit. And otherwise, yes, there will be a bit of cloud here and there, maybe even 1 or 2 showers, but generally it's looking dry with some clear skies. As a result, again, it's going to turn a bit chilly, perhaps not quite as cold as last night, but nonetheless, in some rural spots away from the towns and cities, a touch of frost is possible first thing tomorrow morning. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow, pretty bright start for most of us. Again, there will be a few showers here and there towards some North Sea coastal parts of East Anglia, a few showers perhaps, but generally it's largely dry and there should be a good deal of sunshine. Not wall-to-wall blue skies necessarily, but a few sunny periods for most of us. A bit more sunshine perhaps on offer for large chunks of Scotland, but across the far north of mainland Scotland and also Orkney and Shetland, similar to today really, there's probably going to be a bit more cloud here, and again we could see some outbreaks of rain pushing through. Otherwise, and apart from a few showers here and there, none of them looking particularly heavy, and most of us will avoid these, it's going to be a mostly fine day. Plenty of sunshine on offer yet again, and with that sunshine and temperatures a little bit higher than today, there's a good chance it's going to feel pretty warm for most of us, could just about get into the low 20s Celsius. Little changes as we go through the evening tomorrow. Again, it's looking largely fine, and once more we're going to have a bit of a chilly night Wednesday night into Thursday. Looking through the rest of the week, and as I mentioned, high pressures sticking around, so lots of fine sunny weather to come, and our temperatures are going to be creeping up as well. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Well, isn't it sending the wrong message to young workers who think that it would be all right to turn up drunk to work, or actually just ring up and say, I'm not coming in today because I'm drunk? That's no way to build a career, is it?
Well, I mean, this ensures that they don't turn up drunk to work because they can stay at home and have a line if they're feeling a bit worse for wear. But I think the point is it incentivizes people who, the reason the company did it was because they can't offer really high wages, so they have to offer any perks they can give. And this was one of them. And I think that if it makes life a bit easier, a bit more fun for young workers, then that's a good thing.
Dom, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's terrible. I've run a lot of companies. I've been in a situation where I've not had budget to hire people, and we didn't go to hangover leave. We went to offering things like gym membership, offering people things like therapy, offering positive things at work to be able to get them to enjoy where they work, not hangover leave. I think that's a bit desperate, well, very desperate. And to be honest, if you're running a company and someone wants to work at you because they want hangover leave, they're probably the wrong person to have in your organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Luca, isn't Gen Z supposed to be the generation that doesn't want to get drunk, that they're all for sort of healthy living and having mint tea instead of beer? Oh.
Well, some of us are, not all of us, don't worry. But there you go, all the more reason to do this. It can help with the nighttime economy. It can get people going back into pubs and bars and really boost that element of our economy. And as you say, many people won't want to take it anyway. It's an optional thing. It's not like you have to go out and get drunk every evening if your company has such a policy.
No, but what about having a responsible attitude to work?
The People's Channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you, as ever, live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, caught red-handed. A French Coast Guard is filmed handing out free life jackets to illegal immigrants on their way to England. It's another Mark White corking exclusive. Anderson and ask them, forget about stopping the boats. Is it time to stop the dosh? Is it time to defund the French? After taking a battering at last week's elections, has the Labour Party adopted reforms policy on how to clamp down on bogus asylum claims? Well, today, Yvette Cooper has vowed to limit work and study visa applications from places like Pakistan, Nigeria and Sri Lanka. Those are the most likely to overstay and claim asylum. But is it too little, too late? A new Canadian PM, Mark Carney, was elected on an anti-Donald Trump ticket. Well, today, Carney steps into the lion's den at the White House to face his nemesis, Donald Trump. We'll be there live, but will the encounter be another epic car crash to match Trump v. Zelensky?
Gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Going to be carnage for Carney. We'll be live at 5. And it's carry-on cancel culture as suffocating new Ofcom guidelines are threatening to drive the British end of the pier classics into extinction. Sid James would be turning in his grave. Have we finally lost the plot? Well, the show's a pleasure to have your company. And we're back in Westminster after yesterday's epic show from outside Buckingham Palace. Thanks for everybody who tuned in to that moment in history. But we're back to business, back to brass tacks, back to what do we do best. Mark White, another stonking exclusive, an astonishing video of French Coast Guards willy-nilly handing out free life jackets to illegal immigrants on their way to Britain. Who pays for those life jackets? £500 million we give the French every single year. You could be paying for this VIP treatment. Is it time to stop it? Is it time to stop the dosh? Forget about stopping the boats. Stop le dosh. Stop giving money to the French. I'll be joined by Chris Philp in the studio, the Shadow Home Secretary, and later in the show by Reform's Lee Anderson. Is this it? Is enough enough? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your way is the way to do that. But now it's your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. The UK and India have agreed a landmark trade deal which delivers on the UK government's core mission of growing the economy, raising living standards and putting money in people's pockets. After 3 years of on-off negotiations, the UK and India have agreed a trade deal which will make it easier for UK firms to export whisky, cars and other products to India and cut taxes on India's clothing and footwear exports. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said on X that his country had concluded an ambitious and mutually beneficial free trade agreement with the UK. Downing Street says Sir Keir Starmer will visit India at the earliest opportunity following a phone call between he and his counterpart. Sir Keir Starmer says the trade deal with India will grow the economy and deliver for British people and business.
Well, this is a historic day for the United Kingdom and for India, because this is the biggest trade deal that we, the UK, have done since we left the EU, and it's the most ambitious trade deal that India has ever done. And this will be measured in billions of pounds into our economy and jobs across the whole of the United Kingdom. So it is a really important, significant day.
Downing Street has ruled out a U-turn on means testing the winter fuel payment. That comes after the government was reportedly rethinking its cut to the winter fuel allowance.